All right, we're back.
Yeah, we don't know what the fuck happened with that.
Why is it so much brighter?
Restart it. Because this fucking thing's retarded. Look at that. It looks better.
Yeah, I guess so.
There's something up. Check the volume.
No, I did already.
You did already?
I guess the volume's okay.
Okay.
Because the volume keeps like turning. It doesn't all do it all kind of like crazy shit.
I don't understand this thing. We restarted the whole laptop.
Well, I had to. It froze up.
Yeah. Oh, it did. It froze up.
Mm-hmm.
There's some shit with that.
Well, that's what happens when you buy a cheap ass laptop, I guess.
We have to get another laptop.
But the thing about it is that this is about when we crashed on Wednesday as well. I think it was like about 45 minute mark. And then after that, it was okay. But like I said, I'm trying not to jinx anything.
That laptop should have plenty to do the stream, though.
Well, yeah, like I said, we've discussed this before. Yeah. I don't know. I'm mystified, and I honestly am too old to worry about that kind of bullshit at this point. Okay. I just want stuff to work.
We're almost up to 20 now.
Hooray.
Everybody's all pouring back in. Yeah, what I was saying, and I'll say it. I'll go ahead and say what I was saying.
He says get a Mac. I have a Mac, but it's old.
It's an old one. What I wasn't talking about Willard the rat. I was talking about Captain Willard from Apocalypse Now. He's a good example of PTSD and how a good man could get addicted to that rush of fucking mission, goal-directed violence, okay? Or mission-directed violence. He's fucking loaded off his ass in the hotel room. Somebody knocks on the door and fucking two officers come in and he rolls off and the general wants to see you. You come with, it says, Captain Willard, you need to come with us. And he goes, what are the charges? So he's already thinking he's in big trouble. No, the general wants to see you, man. You got a new mission. And he's like, oh, okay. And then they finally get him in there and they fucking start asking him, did you kill a Vietnamese officer, this and that? And he goes, oh, I don't know anything about that mission. Did you assassinate the officer over here? He goes, I don't know anything about that. So he's denying all these fucking homicides. So he had already killed 4 or 5 people, all of them illegally. That's why he was denying it. But he was ordered to do it. You couldn't say yes. Then they wouldn't trust you with the mission. Because you had to deny the mission. The mission didn't exist. So you know he had some of that inner conflict. You know what I mean? He was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing, but that's what his job was. They were telling him to do it.
Yeah. Just following orders.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the orders weren't legal though. But he was in he was in Mac v SOG, which was a special observation group. It was CIA and special forces all mixed together. It was doing things that was similar to what my unit was doing. During that same time, my unit was called Tiger Force. You can look it up. It's 1st 327 Recon. And its nickname in Vietnam was called Tiger Force. And it was a lot like Mac v SOG. A lot of investigations I didn't know about. Later on, they declassified a bunch of stuff about my unit. It did a lot of bad shit, like cut people's heads off and fucking rape people and stuff. They were out Viet Conging the Viet Cong. The Vietnamese were with them, the South Vietnamese, when they were doing all this stuff. They were using terror tactics against the enemy. But they all did it. Everybody was doing that. That was the way that was. That's why that's a fucking great movie, even though it's not 100% accurate. Let's see if everybody's here. Okay, it's good enough now. We can get back to the subject.
Okay, cool. All right. So, like I said, we've just been kind of doing a general thing about Aileen Wuornos, but let's kind of talk about. Let's do the timeline. Kind of talk about her upbringing and all that other kind of shit. If everyone is prepared to do that. Like I said, since we've already been on for like fucking 45 minutes, even though it doesn't really seem that long, honestly. Hopefully it won't crash again, but we'll see how it goes. All right. So Aileen was actually born in the 50s, and like her dad, who she never met, her dad's name was Leo Dale Pittman, and he was actually a child molester and also a criminal. He was actually in prison when she was born. Thank you, Gadgy3. Matrix glitched, so have to do it again. Did I do it before? Have a Stella. Yeah, you did do it before.
Thank you.
But thank you anyway. Yeah, so he was in prison when she was born. He actually ended up hanging himself in prison in 1969. So, as I said, genetically, maybe not the best stock because he was in prison. I think he was in prison for raping a 9-year-old girl, 7-year-old girl, something like that. Yeah. So that was the dad. And her mom, whose name was Diane, she actually married this guy when she was only 14 years old. Like, she got pregnant and then she married him. And the first kid that they had together was actually Aileen's brother, whose name was Keith. So he was a little bit older than her. So Diane and Leo, Aileen's parents, were only married about 2 years. And then right before Aileen was born, just a couple months before she was born, her mom got a divorce. And like I said, she was just a kid. So not real good. So basically in 1960, you know, she's still a teenager. She has 2 young babies. And she's kind of like, well, I can't really deal with all this situation. So she left Aileen and her older brother Keith with her parents. So Aileen and Keith's maternal grandparents, whose names were Lori, that was the dude, and Britta Wuornos. Now, these 2 had their own set of problems. They were both drunks, and Lori, the grandfather, was real strict and real abusive. And the weird thing about it, so they had 2 kids of their own, right? So they raise Aileen and Keith as their own kids, and they don't tell them that they are not actually their parents, but their grandparents, right? And they're going to find out at some point later on and think, all adults are big fat liars. And that is essentially what happened. So, yeah, so they didn't tell him for a long time. And the grandfather, like I said, kind of a drunk. I think the grandma was kind of a drunk too, which I don't kind of blame her because putting up with the grandpa was probably annoying. But this was in Troy, Michigan. So Aileen and Keith didn't find out that these were their grandparents and not their parents until Aileen was 12 years old. I don't know how she found out, but they found out somehow. And again, she'd already been, prior to that point, it's interesting because if you see pictures of her as a little girl, she's actually like a pretty cute little girl. But I think because her grandfather, her home life was so abusive, like he used to beat the shit out of her, he used to beat the shit out of Keith. And so I think she was kind of like, she had a problem with her temper. Like, she acted out a lot. And I saw a documentary about her earlier, and there was a friend of hers that knew her like in elementary school. And she was like, I think that a lot of the other kids were kind of scared of her and wouldn't hang out with her. And so she'd be like sitting over there by herself. But if anybody said anything sideways to her, she would like beat the crap out of you. You know what I mean? She was like that kind of kid, even when she was like pretty little. So when Aileen finds out that her grandparents are actually her parents, that made it like way even worse. Because like I said, you tell a kid your whole life, hey, I'm your mom and dad. Oh, never mind, I'm not your mom and dad. That's you're gonna develop some trust issues, which she did. So she had already, by this point, I think when she was only 10 or 11 years old, she kind of discovered that the only way that people would hang out with her and like her was if she traded sexual favors to boys. And like I said, she was 10 or 11 years old. So she's basically, taking boys out behind the bleachers or whatever, letting them do whatever. And then she was doing that for like cigarettes or, some quarters or something like that. She was just a little kid. Because I think she kind of came to a realization earlier on that this is the only way that I'm going to get kids to like me is doing this. So, which is fucked up.
I'm looking at your boobs through my tablet.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're just like not helping me on the show at all, are you?
No. I'm getting ready to make another drink, actually. You want another drink?
Yeah, hold on. Let me finish this.
Okay, go ahead down. That's it. Yeah. Sophie sent that to me. They're saying I like the shirt. Mm-hmm. That's a club I used to hang out at back in the 80s in Detroit. Called City Club. There's an old goth club.
You gonna get my turn? That's empty enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maria makes the point rage is associated with borderline personality disorder. Yes, which is what she got diagnosed with later on. She seemed to have problems with that almost from the beginning. Like I said, you know, she had, even though she never met her dad because he was in prison when she was born and then he committed suicide in prison later on, you know, he was a criminal, you know, and a child molester. So, you know, not the best. And like I said, her mom was only like, you know, 14, 15 years old when she had her. So, you know, not the greatest start in life. And then she goes and lives with her grandparents, and they are also abusive. Now, the thing about it, too, is that, so not only was Aileen kind of, it seemed like she had learned at this point that, one, you couldn't trust anybody. Two, the only way to get people to like you was either by buying them things or offering them your body, essentially, which was kind of the conclusion that she came to. She actually did say later that maybe her grandfather had molested her. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I think that was one of the claims that she made later on, which, like I said, it wouldn't shock me. He did beat the crap out of them, and a lot of the abuse did have a sexual tinge to it. So, like I said, it wouldn't be all that surprising if that had happened. Now, so Aileen and her brother Keith, who was a little bit older, apparently Keith was the only person that Aileen trusted. Now, her and her brother were really close, although their step siblings said that, you know, they could be really close, but then they, you know, fought a lot too. So it was a very tumultuous relationship. Thank you. Aileen also admitted later that it was also a sexual relationship. So she did actually have sexual relations with her brother.
Let me get it.
When they were both young, when they were both kids. Which, as I said, it's gross, but you can almost understand why it happened, because they were kind of like, well, we're the only thing that each other has. So you know what I mean? Thank you, Zach. Tonight's good. I got back from another date, have Chinese for dinner, and my favorite show is going.
Mm-hmm.
You look great in white, by the way, Jenny. Thank you. I never wear white, though. I don't know. There's something about it I don't like coffee, but you know, Bride of Frankenstein, I got to do that shit. But yeah, so she was sleeping with her brother, apparently, which is fucked up.
I don't think that's all that rare, actually.
Well, in the situation that they were,
kids, I think they'd fucking fuck around.
Well,
I never had any siblings, so I don't really know, but I kind of remember shit like that when I was a little kid.
I think their situation was, you know, they were in a household that they found out when they were 12, 13 years old was not their parents, but their grandparents, and that their mom had abandoned them. And they kind of felt like, well, me and you were like the only ones we can, you know, we're the only people that we can trust, right? Like,
that's like some shit out of
it was like them against the world.
That's some shit out of like the Roman Empire.
I was kind of thinking it was like Flowers in the Attic.
Yeah,
you guys like read that? It was like that kind of like incestuous weirdness. Like I said, they were they were kids. I mean, you know, they were teens, tweens, whatever. So it's like, I'm not going to like shit on them for that. And like, I understand, you know, how that could have happened. Because as far as I know, because I think Keith was abused as well.
Roman Empire had some weird shit like that going on in it at all times, just because they were so viperous. A lot of times, brother and sister are the only people that could trust. They were the only people that had any trust for each other, even within a family. You had family, especially royal families. The family members were killing each other over power and shit. Caligula and his sister, evidently, that's what was going on.
Yeah.
It was like a fucking mafia family, worse than a mafia family, more like something out of, I don't know, like Saddam Hussein's family.
I mean, like I said, I think though that this is kind of a different situation because they were just kids and they were both enduring the same abuse.
That's what I was saying. Well, there was abuse in the fucking royal families of Rome. You know, they were killing each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of times the siblings were the only people that trusted one another inside the whole family.
Yeah.
And they were all locked up. You know, they weren't open societies. Couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, so you can see how it happened. Like I said, I'm not excusing it.
They weren't locked up, but they were locked up in poverty. There was nowhere they could go.
Yeah. So, as I said, so Aileen had kind of gotten a reputation. Goodness. You all right?
It burned my throat.
Yeah.
Wonder what that was in there.
I don't know.
It was like bad, almost like hair. You ever had a hair land on your cigarette and you fucking take a drag off of it?
No, I have not.
Man, it'll fuck you up.
Okay. Yeah, so as I said, Aileen had kind of got a reputation, going back to when she was 11, 12 years old around the neighborhood, that she was promiscuous, that if you wanted to do anything sexual, all you had to do was give her some cigarettes or some change and she would do whatever you wanted, right?
Yeah.
So not a good situation. So not surprisingly, when she's 14 years old, she turns up pregnant. She said that the pregnancy was a result of rape. She said that the guy that, the father was, an older dude from the neighborhood. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what she said. So she gets sent to, a home for unwed mothers, one of those things that they had back then. Mm. When she gets to this home, the staff couldn't really do much with her. By this point, she was kind of like incorrigible. She had a lot of problems with rage, with her temper. She would always kind of like, as I said, a lot of the neighborhood kids and some of the other kids too, I think in the home were kind of like afraid of her because her temper was just, she would kind of like be normal and then she would just kind of snap and like flip out or whatever. So I think a lot of people were kind of bothered by that. Now, she ended up having a boy. Reports differ. I think she said later that she was just kind of allowed to see him for a second, but I think they just like kind of took him away and didn't let her see him and just gave him up for adoption. So I don't even think, I never read anywhere that she was able to go and find him or if she ever really wanted to do that or anything like that. But so she had a baby when she was 14 and they took it away from her. That was in January of 1971. Now, later that same year, interestingly, her grandmother, Britta, who they'd been living with, died. Now, after the grandmother died, the grandfather, Laurie, the abusive asshole, was like, okay, well, I don't feel the need to have these children in my home anymore, who were still teenagers. They were like 14 and 16, I think. So he kicked them both out. Keith, the older brother, he just kind of like moved down the street to his friend's house. But Aileen was kind of like, fuck it, I'm just going to go off on my own. And she just started wandering around and making money as a sex worker because that's what she knew how to do. You know what I mean? And she was like fucking 14 or 15. So.
Something's in there. Mm. I'm not smoking any more of that. Somebody said Tom just smoked a seed. Probably wasn't a seed, some kind of stem.
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah. That's not weed. That's a what do you call them? Herbal cigarette.
It's just an herbal cigarette. Yeah. Which is they just throw some fucking,
I can't smoke real cigarettes
they
anymore.
Just throw some fucking cut grass inside a fucking thing and like
I was like, oh, it kept burning me up every time I took a
I don't know.
Yeah. Tom
now
the blunt. Y'all need to stop fucking with me, man. I don't like weed. Smoked a lot of weed when I was a kid. I don't like it. Smoked some of it a couple of years back. It was still, I was like, yeah, I remember that. That's not.
Yeah, I'm not like a big fan of it either. I mean, we've kind of gone into that before. So yeah, so
cheap drugs.
Well, it depends on what kind you get. I mean, some of it might be if you get the good shit. Yeah, so you have to think at this stage, Aileen is 14, 15 years old, and she is essentially left to her own devices because her grandfather has thrown her out of the house. Now, I guess at this stage, her mom, Diane, I guess asked Aileen and Keith to come live with her, but neither one of them wanted to because, like I said, I guess they were kind of like, hey, you abandoned us, so fuck off. It was just kind of that kind of thing. So, as I said, Aileen just kind of dropped out of school. She just kind of took to wandering around and started making her money as a sex worker. Now, a couple of years after that, her brother Keith actually ended up dying from throat cancer. I mean, he was young. So he died of cancer. Her grandfather, what?
Nothing.
Oh.
I'm responding to somebody in the comments.
Oh, okay.
Let me do my job, Jenny.
You're not doing my job. You're not
responding to Tila in the job. Okay, go ahead. No, are you putting on a show? I'm listening.
All right. Yeah, so Keith,
you're doing good. You don't need me to interject. And today we're on a fucking time limit.
Well, we're not like on a time.
Gotta watch it. You know what I mean? We have shit we gotta do today. And I can't sit here and get loaded tonight. I gotta drive.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna have. This is my last one. I'm not gonna have another one after this. Because, like I said, I don't. I'm mostly ready. All I have to do is put shoes on and put my nails on and shit. But you know what I mean? Yeah. So her brother, who was pretty much, according to everything I've ever read, like the only person she ever like actually connected with, he died real young of throat cancer, and then not too long after that, their grandfather committed suicide. So, like I said, it's just tragedy after tragedy. So Aileen, who most of her friends knew as Lee, actually, she kind of moved around. She did some petty shit like in other states or whatever, but she heads for Florida. Now in Florida, she meets this guy who was much, much, much older than her. He was like an old guy. She was only maybe in her teens or early 20s at this point. And he was like maybe in his 60s or 70s. His name was Louis Fell. And he was kind of well off, right? He'd had like, he was president of the local yacht club. Like he had made all this money from railroad stocks and all this other kind of stuff. So he was kind of like, kind of wealthy. And he, for whatever reason, took a shine to Aileen. And then they got married. I don't know how long they knew each other. I kind of feel like it wasn't really that long. So they get married. And then, predictably, it didn't go super well because I guess Aileen was back in Michigan doing what she did, like visiting friends or whatever. And she got into a bar fight, which was another common occurrence for her. She apparently threw a cue ball at the back of a bartender's head and got arrested. And so Louis, her husband, decided he was going to get the marriage annulled. He also said that she had spent a whole bunch of his money and that she was abusive toward him, like that she would beat him with his own cane and shit like that, and that she had anger issues. So the marriage actually kind of ended up getting annulled. Now, as I mentioned, her brother Keith had died of cancer. Now, Keith had life insurance, and he actually left $10,000 to Aileen. So Aileen got $10,000. How long did that $10,000 last? 2 months. She bought a car with it, and she wrecked it almost immediately, and pretty much used the rest of it for beer and staying in cheap motels. So, she's living the high life at this stage. So she's kind of, like I said, she kind of drifted to Colorado for a little while. She was like in Michigan for a little while, but eventually she ends up back in Florida. And this is where most of her major crimes were committed. Like I said, she did commit some shit in other places like petty larceny and, holding up fucking liquor stores and shit like that, but forgery. But Florida is where her serial killing career kind of started out. She actually got, I think she was in prison for, she got a 3-year sentence, but I can't remember how long she was in there. But she held up, man, what was it? A liquor store or a convenience store? She came in a bikini, I think, and basically like held up the old woman behind the counter, like pulled a gun on her. Yeah, I think she was wearing a bikini. But she got caught for it. Like, it was like in the middle of the day. I think she was just kind of like, I don't think she went in there intending to hold it up. I think it just kind of was like a spur in the moment thing. Aileen Wuornos, she was not a real organized person. You know what I mean? We were talking about BTK earlier and how he was like a planner. And like sometimes he would have kind of like, he had notebooks full of like plans and maps and shit like that. So he was like very into stalking people. It was kind of like that was part of the fun for him, was keeping dossiers on people and like stalking them ahead of time and stuff. Aileen was much more a spur of the moment kind of motherfucker. You know what I mean? I don't think she really thought about anything particularly beforehand. Like I said, I don't think she woke up one morning and said, I'm going to be a fucking serial killer. I think it just kind of happened. And then she's just kind of like, whatever. She was just kind of one of those, I'm going with whatever kind of people. So this hold up that she got put in jail for a brief time for, I don't even think she went in there like planning to hold the place up. I think she just went in there and then she just decided to, you know. I'm just hearing a bikini. It's like she didn't really think about how ridiculous that was or how easy it would be for her to get caught or whatever. So yeah. So at this stage, you know, she's making most of her money. I mean, she's doing like petty theft, like holding up places and shit like that. But she's making most of her money as a sex worker. Now, even though she was just like in her 20s at this stage, she wasn't a bad looking woman when she was younger. But you know, as time went on and she kind of drank a lot and, you know, she lived real rough. I think, you know, when she first got kicked out of her grandfather's house, she was like living in the woods and shit like that. So that's going to take a toll on your looks, you know. So, I mean, when she was executed, she was 46 and she looked like
70.
She looked like 100 miles of bad road, yeah. Seriously. I mean, you know.
She looked like a rockhead.
Not to be a shithead, but
yeah.
Living that kind of life is going to take a toll on your looks.
Let me say something, though, before we continue. There's a really good movie about her, and it had, what's her name?
Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron. And
it's called Monster.
Yeah, Monster. And little cutie girl. Fucking little cutie girl that played, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, come on, I'm not that drunk, Jenny. The girl from Addams Family.
Yeah, Christina Ricci.
Christina Ricci.
Yeah, she played Tyra, who we're about to talk about in a minute.
And fucking those two got so ugly for that fucking movie. I really respect that shit.
Well,
she fucking ended up looking like Aileen Wuornos.
Charlize Theron.
I'm pretty fucking gorgeous. She's a cute woman. She just fucking ratted herself to fuck to look like Aileen Wuornos, and I was just like, God damn.
She won an Oscar for that, actually.
Yeah.
I saw that movie in the theater. That was the only other time, because I remember you guys when I said that Martin Landau playing Bela Lugosi in Ed Wood was the only other time that I forgot that it was an actor playing that part. That was the other time. Charlize Theron playing Aileen Wuornos. I forgot that was not Aileen Wuornos. Yeah. I forgot that she was dead. I love
Christina Ricci
while I was watching that. Yeah.
She was short. I fucking got so pissed when she fucking lost weight and lopped her boobs off. Because when she was short, she did one movie where she was short and she put on some weight where she played the blonde girl. I don't remember the name of that one. Remember where she played kind of like she was in a seamster and her fucking boobs were big and shit? And I can't believe she got a fucking boob reduction. That's fucking crazy. That's like having bars of gold and just throw it away. Fuck, man. Every man got mad. Every boob man got mad. Remember that one?
Well, considering they're not your boobs, I guess it doesn't really matter if y'all got mad or not.
In the movies. We're talking about they were in the movies. It's public property. I mean, come on, man. They were in the movies.
Not really.
They were in the movies. I can't understand why she did that.
Well, maybe her back was hurting.
I don't believe that. Work out. Get some back muscles, man.
Or maybe she wanted some different kinds of roles. Maybe she thought she was getting only one kind of roles because she had big boobs.
The thing is just all stereotypical bullshit. She was short and she was fucking curvy, all right? And she was cute. And I guess she wanted to have, well, I don't want to be that. I want to be able to be anything. But she was working that look. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was bringing that into the mainstream.
But it does typecast you a little bit.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Maybe she wanted to do more serious roles or whatever. Dom the Bomb laughing, bars of gold.
Bars of gold, exactly. Bars of gold, bro. Men understand. See, you don't understand me anymore. You don't understand me.
Why are you always crying? Why are you crying?
Okay, we gotta get back to the show.
He's always crying.
Okay. It's not crying.
It is, though.
It's pontificating.
No, that's not what you're
doing.
Pontificating. I'm pretty sure it's crying.
It's just a different kind. I'm okay.
Or it's at least complaining. You're like an old woman.
What are you talking about? I'm like an old woman?
You're like an old woman, just like
crying.
Crying all the time.
Crying all the time.
Crying all the time.
All right. Hold on.
Pour one out for the lobbed off.
She fucking picks on me constantly for being reasonable.
No, that's not why I'm picking on you.
I'm
picking on you. But, well, the fact, I think it's very funny that you think you're being reasonable. No, you're clearly not.
Of course I'm being reasonable.
No, you're really not. But, okay.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen Monster, I would recommend it. It's like really, really good. And like I said, that was one of the 2 movies that I can think of where I actually forgot that was an actor playing the part. I mean, she was amazing in that.
Now, I like fucking Prometheus, and fucking a lot of people don't like Prometheus, but fuck those people. I like the Prometheus on Blu-ray with the deleted scenes and all that shit and all that mystery, and she was in that movie too. I thought she did a great job. And I know
she's a fantastic actress.
And I know more about that movie than these motherfuckers that didn't like it. She was playing a replicant. I don't want to get off on that shit, but...
Well, yeah, what does that have to do with
anything? She was being a replicant.
That doesn't have anything to do with anything. That just had to do with, you just used that as a tangent because she was in Monster and you wanted to go off and talk
about We're going to have fun tonight.
Hugo says, Tom, where's your costume? He's no fun. That's where his costume is.
I already went through this. Oh, the costumes that I have are too hot, man, for where we're going. That's not a hot out costume. I mean, it's hot, but I'm saying it's temperature. It's fucking burning up out there, man.
Yeah, this dress is actually Florida, pretty short.
It's tropical out there. I'm not going to dress up in something because everything I have is based around jackets and shit.
Yeah, I think it's like 87 degrees outside.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go out there with 100% humidity and I'm just not going to do it. When I was younger and had some shit to prove, everybody knows my closet, bitch. They know my closet's fantastic. Half the shit I have is fucking brocade and velvet, and I'm not wearing that. I'm not going to dress up like a vampire.
That's how cool he is. He just has the clothes, but he doesn't wear them.
Yeah, I don't have to wear them. I graduated. They know what I have.
In there.
Everybody down there knows what I have. So I don't have to. Now, I could be like these fucking industrial motherfuckers like Defense Mechanism. That's that girl where you try to remember her name, Defense Mechanism.
That's right.
Defense Mechanism.
I couldn't think of it on Wednesday. I was just like, God damn it, what's her fucking name?
Yeah, I could, and just dress up in metal shards and glass and stuff. That's nice and cool because there's no material there.
Plus, it keeps everyone away from you, so it's a win-win.
But it helps when you're a fucking chick with fucking big boobs and a rocking body you can wear next to nothing. The only way I'm going to be able to get away with that is in a couple more months when I burn off a little bit more fat, like the HRT kicking in, right? Fucking, you should have seen my sheets, bro. My sheet, it was just a damn smudge, a grease smudge.
I told you when you got out of bed the other day, the sheets smelled so bad that I was just kind of like, what?
Every fucking night, that HRT fucks you up. I was like,
they're in the
I haven't stunk that bad.
They're in the dryer
fucking
right now.
14, man.
God damn it!
And it's just like sweating out bacon grease and shit.
It's like having a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, but no, I'm gonna be rocking my fucking gladiator outfit, man. Every gay man in the world's gonna want my autograph when that shit's ready, bro. Fucking Zach's gonna be like, Tom, could you send me one of them pictures of you in that gladiator outfit? It's just Greaves and a fucking armored skirt, no shirt, and a fucking like a Murmillo or a fucking Murmillo outfit with a fucking helmet and shit, or a Secutor. I'm not gonna dress up like a fucking Rettiari though. No, I'm not gonna do that one.
Okay, well,
probably
a
Murmillo. A Murmillo, yeah. Rettiari, a Rettiari, you had to be gay to be a Rettiari. They said that because it's a man. It's a man fishing for other men because he's a fisherman. Here, a man fishing for other men. So Rettiari were gay. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Victor's. Victor Garcia's joke. I heard Charlize Theron is really Meryl Streep prepping for a role. Love it. Yeah, I love that joke. All right. Wouldn't that be something if she came out and it was just like fucking like the world's longest troll? It was just Meryl Streep all along. Yeah, you should.
Nah, with the fucking big fro.
Yeah.
The fro wig.
Well, you could kind of wear your Michael Douglas wig, Michael Caine wig. Your Willy Wonka wig, but you'd have to kind of
dark brown. He had
wear
like
some little shorts.
They're telling me to flex that crustle.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going back with their thing.
Zach says, Tom, I've already got a man in my life. Why I need you and your pale ass?
I'm not pale. I'm not pale, but...
Your ass is pale.
That's because I wear pants. No, I've been getting
So you do have a pale ass.
Just the ass part right now. I walk every day
it's like
with
those
fucking in my shorts
copper
and shit.
tone ads.
Oh, yeah, I walk every day in my fucking shorts and go down to the pool. I'm in Florida, bitch. I get my fucking side.
I mean, you get vitamin D whether you want to or not.
Mm-hmm.
you know? Just walking outside, you get all the sun you would ever need.
This is Florida in the summer.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah.
Shit, man. Tomorrow's May.
Sheila says she's still looking at houses and thinking about moving down here.
Do it. Come on.
I've got a house right next door to me, T. That's fucking, I think it's for sale, too. I think they want $375 for that, though.
Maybe. Well,
two-story house.
I don't know if somebody's buying it, though, because I keep seeing, like, workmen over there.
Well, I think the landlord's just rebuilding it because new renters are coming.
Okay.
He's been trying to sell that thing. T, you contact me. I'll give you the address and everything.
Come on, we need somebody like that lives nearby to hang out.
It's a beautiful fucking two-story house, and the upper floor looks down on the fucking lower floor. So it's got vaulted. It's like real high vaulted ceilings.
Yeah, it's nice.
We knew the people that used to live there. Used to go over there. Yeah,
because we've been in there a couple.
It's got like 7 fucking bedrooms and a fucking.
It's not 7 bedrooms. Shut up.
It's got a bunch of. It's got 3 living rooms, and dens, and a big downstairs fucking den, and. It's got a gigantic fucking garage. You could probably fit 4 cars in there. It's pretty nice. The only downside is it costs a lot to air condition these 2-stories houses here. It's because it's the front of the damn house is one big fucking window. The window covers 2 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice house though.
Yeah, it's nice though. Yeah.
And I think they've put in...
It's twice the size of this one.
It looks like they put in all new carpet. I don't know what else they did in there, but they've been working in there. I know they put new carpet in because I saw when they pulled the old carpet out. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Tila says, don't tempt us, Tom. We're seriously looking at a few states right now. We have not ruled out Florida.
T says, $375 would get you a tent. And the tent will... Yeah, you cannot... Nothing in California equates to nothing in San Francisco equates to Florida. It's an entirely different world. Entirely different.
I mean, you can get nicer shit for pretty cheap here.
Yeah, you can get a mansion for.
Yeah, you got $375, $400,000. You can get like a really nice,
fucking huge house, and it's in a good neighborhood and with a lot of great services, and it's a lot of fun down here. It's like everything looks like Disney. It all looks like an extension of Disney. Fucking. If you give me a social social media contact, I'll take videos of the house next door. I'll show you what the neighborhood looks like, what it looks like around here. Compared to California, it's amazing. And I'm from California. California's kind of tired. It's from another era. This is all brand new, man. It's all fucking brand new.
Well, and they're still building stuff all around this. I mean, this neighborhood is probably 11 years old, 12 years old. But they're building new houses all around here. So you might be able to get something new just like right up the street.
And the feel of it reminds me a lot of San Francisco Vista area back in the late 70s. Back in the late 70s. That's what it feels like. Very real open, free environment. It's not aggressive or anything. There's no assholes. If you're an asshole here, it's not tolerated. You know.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No. You get your ass beat down here. This is nothing like, you never lived in New England. In Boston, you can't live there without being an asshole. A lot of the shit they would do in Boston, New York area, even though New York's a lot friendlier actually than Boston.
Yeah, I've been to New York. I've been to New York lots of times, and it's like I never found it particularly
New Yorkers have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
People in Boston don't. Fucking uptight. No. And then they mouth off. You mouth off here. This is an honor-based society. You mouth off here, you're gonna get shot or you're gonna get the shit kicked out of you. You respect people, they respect you. That's just how it is here. Lawyers don't really run this. That's why, I mean, we've been at clubs where the bartender's fucking holding the door shut. This is a high-end bar, and the other side of that fucking door is a dude fucking open fire with a fucking pistol on the other side because of honor. And it's not a crime-ridden area. Even though people get killed and shit. It's just, you gotta watch yourself here. Some of these fuckers are wild. Now, the cops don't tolerate it. They tore that dude a new asshole. The police station was right behind him.
Well, that dude was pretty drunk.
He was drunk. Yeah. But then, you know.
Yeah, the police station is literally
right behind him. And he's fucking shooting at the club door.
There's iBar, there's a parking lot, there's a pizza place, and then there's the police station.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, you know, they have it's a southern mentality. You do something wrong, they'll retaliate. Just be cool. If you're cool to people, you won't have any fucking problem. Probably. Yeah.
I mean, shit still happens. But probably.
Yeah. Think Star Wars.
I'm from here, so
it's like Mos Eisley.
I'm from here. I've lived here my whole life.
Yeah, so it's cool.
I have.
Yeah. It's just the places like Las Vegas, Disneyland, and Mos Eisley all put together. It's not a ruthless place by any stretch of the imagination. Brazil was ruthless. That's the mirror universe. That's kind of where I grew up in my formative years, like Sao Paulo, Brazil. Even though I loved that place, it's a lot softer than that. Even though those are, yeah, I don't want to get off into that shit.
You already did.
I got off into that shit. It's kind of like California back in the good old days. That's the way it feels to me. That's the closest analogy. Mixed with Mississippi. There is a southern hospitality and a southern honor culture. Let me get Jenny doesn't notice it as much because she grew up here. So she doesn't really have a lot to compare it to. I'm talking about a cigarette.
Well, I have things to compare it to. It's just, you
lived in England. But
well, I have a more, I mean, I've lived here my whole life. And I've lived,
appreciate it as much as I did.
And I lived in other places, so I know what's behind a lot of the shit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it. I appreciate it more than than I think she does. I appreciate Florida. Yeah, it's not perfect, but no place is.
Well, I know that. I'm just saying.
Of strengths, though.
Okay, that's cool. But I'm just saying that you have to think that I maybe have a different take on it because I was born here.
Yeah.
And I lived here my whole entire life.
I see the world through my eyes.
And yeah. But you kind of think that that's the only way to look at things. That's the correct way. And it's not.
No, it definitely is.
No, it's not.
Definitely.
Definitely. No, it's not.
It's I just like it. I like it here.
I like some things about it, but there's a lot of things I don't like about it.
Like what?
And like I said, I don't know, a lot of things. And like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. You're just going off on tangents, and I'm trying to talk about the fucking show. Okay. And you're making it longer. Look, I'm only here. I'm only here.
Man, we got a lot of shit to do. Come on, man.
Quit talking.
God damn it. God damn.
I'm sure it's like my fault, but you're the one doing that. You're the one doing it.
Damn.
You're going off on, you're talking about Prometheus and all this other kind of shit. It's like, what the fuck? This doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Man.
Don't have anything to do with anything.
Damn. What? You did this shit, T.
See, he's going to blame you. He always has to blame somebody else. It's never him that did it.
See y'all in the audience doing this shit.
Uh-huh, sure. Even though they didn't say anything about it. You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, thank you.
See, why does she want to throw me out there like that? Go ahead.
I'm not. I'm just asking.
Go ahead, man. I'm just trying to smoke herbal cigarette.
Okay.
I'm trying to smoke a herbal cigarette. I gotta drive.
Xanada says no one who lives in Florida was born there. I was born in Daytona Beach, actually.
It's an expanding state.
Halifax Hospital.
It's an expanding state.
So, like I said, Aileen Wuornos, most of the people she killed and where she lived, like the hotel and everything, that was Daytona Beach. I know exactly where all of that shit is.
In the past, nobody lived here. You just gotta look at it that way.
Well, I only knew in high school. I knew one other. My best friend. She had been born in Florida. She was born in Gainesville.
Yeah.
She was the only person I knew in my high school that was born in Florida. Yeah. Everyone else was from somewhere else.
It's because air conditioning. Before air conditioning, people really didn't live here. It was a fucking swamp.
Yeah. I mean, my parents were not born here either, but they moved here when they were kids. You know what I mean? Because my grandparents moved here in 1958.
On my dad's side, they'd been in Mississippi for since even before the Civil War. And it's as hot as this, and as humid, but not as fucking tropical in terms of like the overgrowth. You know what I mean? It was forest.
Yeah.
You could live here in that kind of heat, but the road system and just, even though Florida was more developed than Mississippi.
I mean, back in the day, like I said, before I was born in the early 1970s, but I mean, because Disney wasn't even here. until 1971. And prior to that, most of the middle part of the state were all of the fucking theme parks and shit like that. There was nothing there. It was just like swamps.
Victor says, y'all have grits in Florida? Yes, man, we got fucking
Fuck
grits.
yeah.
Of course we got fucking
I love grits.
Got a bag of grits sitting right over here.
Jenny, what part of the USA did your family come from? My dad's side of the family came from Tennessee, Springfield, Tennessee. And my mom's side of the family is from Baltimore.
Man,
but
you're part Yankee.
But they moved to Florida when they were, when my parents were very young.
Yeah.
So my dad and my mom both went to high school in Daytona Beach at Mainland High. I went to Seabreeze. Those are rivals. Because Seabreeze is on the beach side and Mainland is on the mainland. So we hated each other. I didn't care, but you know what I mean. I went to Seabreeze because it was right down the street from my apartment. So what were we talking about? All right, so Aileen Wuornos. So as I said, she made her money as a sex worker. She did okay, I kind of feel like at the beginning, but, the rougher the life is, smoking, drinking, doing drugs, whatever. Doesn't do much for your looks. So, getting harder and harder to make money doing that. So she eventually, in 1986, she meets Tyra Moore, known as Ty, who was 24 years old at the time, at a Daytona gay bar. And they kind of get together. Now, for a while, I kind of feel like it's interesting because I think Aileen, this was kind of the first, I'm not really sure if she was just bisexual and she just realized it at this point, or if she was just like sick of dudes because she'd been a sex worker for so long and she was like over it, or if she just liked Ty in particular and that was just kind of like, because it seemed like when they met it was just kind of like instant connection, you know what I mean? So they started hanging out together like all the time.
Victor, look, if you're gonna have grits, that shit can't be plain. You need salt, pepper, butter, and cheese minimum. But you want that shit fully loaded with bacon in there, and and cheese. But go ahead, because you never had grits. They're never talking about grits.
Yeah, Tila says shrimp and grits is the jam.
Shrimp and grits.
Yeah, shrimp and grits.
You can put Cajun seasoning in the grits. Get a good loaded up grits recipe. Hell yeah, it's the polenta of the South.
Yeah, it's a beautiful good canvas to paint things. Like, I will eat them plain. Well, not plain, but with, like, butter, salt, pepper on them. Some people like them with sugar. I'm not a fan of that,
gravy.
But whatever.
Some people put gravy.
But if you put... I mean, I like them, too, with kind of, like... There's bacon in there, some hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah, a couple hard-boiled eggs in there, and then you, like, with a spoon, you slice off some egg, and then you get some grits with
it's good like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so she meets Ty... Now, Ty, at the time, had a job and seemed to have kind of a more stable lifestyle than Aileen did. Because, like I said, Aileen was very much into just kind of like nomadic sort of lifestyle. She just kind of wandered around. She kind of hung out at highway exits looking to pick dudes up, right, for money. So she meets Ty, and thank you, Victor. I knew grits would send y'all off topic. It always does.
Yeah, y'all fucking with us.
Now I want some grits.
Victor's fucking
Thanks
with us.
A lot.
Yeah, all that carbohydrates.
Now I feel like if we go to halfway to Halloween tonight, and then we go to Chantel's after.
Yeah.
She didn't have grits, but she does have chicken and waffles.
That last time I went to Chantel's, I gotta fucking talk to him. They oversalted that fucking...
That catfish was
oversalted.
Very salty. Yeah. I have to say it was.
It
wasn't like that before, though.
It was good. I said, man, drop those French fries. Let me get a fucking Caesar salad with that instead, because I don't want all them carbs. And they were like, yeah, we can do that. And then the fucking fish came, and that shit was too fucking salty. They're making that shit up by hand, because the service is slow. It's a good idea, man. And I'll tell you what, the jerk chicken is good, but, man, they're fucking... I'm going to have to set them bitches straight. Too much goddamn salt.
It's not usually like that, but it was kind of salty last time. But like I said, I keep wanting the chicken and waffles because I've heard they're really good, but it's just I'm never hungry enough to eat all of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of food.
But I don't know. We'll see. I haven't eaten much. All I've had today is that little bit. It's that little bowl of chickpea curry that you made. Yeah, that's all I've had today.
It was lentil curry.
Lentil curry. There you go. So Ty at the time, who was 24, like I said, she was working as a maid at a hotel, Casa del Mar, which is on A1A, which, like I said, that was like right where that was, A1A, the hotel was there. There was like a shopping plaza, and then my apartment was right behind that. So I was like 2 blocks behind there. That's where I lived. So she picks up, so her and Ty start like hanging out. Now, I guess for a time, they're making like pretty good money. They're living at another motel. I think they lived at the Fairview Motel for a while, which I know where that is too. That's a real seedy one. The Casa del Mar is actually pretty nice. It's like a resort and it's like right on the beach. That's where Ty worked. She don't live there though. You know. So they were kind of hanging out, like I said, drinking beer, doing whatever. So what ended up happening is that Ty, I guess, decided, or they both decided, that Ty was not going to work as a maid anymore, and that Aileen, who was known as Lee, was going to support both of them with her prostitution earnings. You know, so that's what they did. The thing about it, though, was that, as I mentioned, because Aileen she still wasn't old. She was still fairly young at this point, but she had lived such a hard life that she really wasn't looking too good and maybe couldn't attract kind of your higher end clientele. Let's put it that way. So, you know, money was kind of always an issue. So they're kind of like living, I think they had an apartment for a little while, but they were mostly just like moving from motel to motel. Sometimes they were homeless and had to like sleep in the woods, shit like that. So it's around this time when Aileen and Ty were kind of, I don't know, they weren't necessarily on the outs, but they were having some problems with money, like shortage of money, because Aileen wasn't bringing in enough, because like I said, she couldn't really attract you know, the higher end clientele anymore. So into this kind of situation comes Aileen's first murder victim. Now, the first victim was named Richard Mallory. He was from Clearwater, Florida, which is over on the West Coast. He owned an electronics repair business. Now, this dude, Richard Mallory, is the guy that, spoiler alert, later on, they would discover had a record for sexual assault against minors. So, know that going in. But so this dude owned an electronics repair business. Now, he was even back then by his employees and like everybody that, you know, knew about his store or whatever, he had a reputation for closing up the store for like days at a time and then going off on like drinking and prostitution binges. It's like, hey, I'm going to close up the store for 3 days and go drink and sleep with hookers. So everyone was just kind of like, okay, that's just what the dude does, right? So that's kind of what he did. So I kind of feel like he had a reputation of doing that, and what he would do is he would bring in temp employees into his store to just deal with whatever orders were pending at the time. And then when those orders were knocked out, he would just fire those people. And then he would just close the store up and just go off drinking and whoring again. So he was that type of dude. Apparently also he changed the locks on his apartment 8 times in 3 years, which seems a little, why would you need to do that? Who knows? So yeah. So all of that said, just to say that when he didn't show up to open his shop back up, this is in December of 1989, no one was all that worried, because they're just kind of like, well, there he goes again, going off on one of his binges. This time though was different. So, but no one reported him missing. He didn't have a wife or kids or nothing like that would have missed him. So, but they found a few days after that, they found his 1977 Cadillac, kind of just abandoned. So at that point, the police kind of got interested, because why is this car here? You know, obviously it was registered to him and he had been missing. So the next one, okay, so December 13th, 1989. which was just a few days after this dude. What are you smirking at?
Laughing at these motherfuckers in the comment section.
Everybody's just talking about grits.
They're talking about grits, and they're talking about Steven Seagal eating grits. Steven Seagal's, he can't eat grits. For 2 reasons. 1, he's from Michigan. 2, he's Jewish. So, no, he's banned from grits.
He's banned? What? Jewish people can't eat grits?
Jewish people, they're not going to eat grits? Of course not. Of course not.
Why not?
They're not halal, or whatever it is. They're not.
That's not a Jewish thing.
Okay.
What the hell are you even
They're not kosher. They're not kosher.
The hell are you even talking about?
Grits are not kosher.
Most Jewish people are really not that stringent.
I'm just talking shit. I'm just saying
I never
Steven Seagal is not Southern enough to eat grits. He's from fucking Michigan. He's from Michigan. He's Yankee, pure Yankee. If you showed Steven, yeah, okay, he moved to Louisiana. All right, and he's running around Louisiana pretending
he's a Cajun,
pretending he's Cajun, pretending he's black. But I guarantee you could look at that belly and everything. Motherfucker wasn't eating grits. He didn't get that off of grits. He got that shit off of that fucking Asian experience drink that he came out with.
Well, no one else was drinking it, so he had to drink it all.
I like it. Honey, I love you. A whole pool. I'm going to drink that whole pool up that you're in that pool. You know, guys, you know what I'm talking about. Exactly.
He drank the whole pool and then he got fat.
Yeah. He had a fucking cute Asian girl in a bikini in a damn pool full of fucking Asian experience. We're going to have a whole Asian experience, me and you, baby. That's what he said. I'm going to drink that whole pool up. Just your bikini going to flavor that shit. Bikini flavor.
I do not want to have an Asian experience.
Yeah, that's what he's going to have. He's a fucking creep, man.
Just
he was a creep.
I don't think that's a controversial opinion to have, and I'm just saying it right now.
No, I'm just talking shit.
I do not want any kind of Steven Seagal experience, Asian or otherwise.
If Steven Seagal ate grits when he was in Louisiana, it was because he was trying to fit in. All right.
Everyone else is eating them.
He pretended to enjoy them.
Well, the thing about...
He pretended to enjoy
I mean, shit, man. We did a whole show about Steven Seagal, but Steven Seagal... The problem with Steven Seagal...
He's a fascinating man.
Well, and dudes like that, because that's a type.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are dudes that are real insecure with their masculinity and also real insecure with their own identity.
Yeah.
Which kind of ties up together.
I'm gonna modify that, but go ahead.
So they don't really know. They try to like belong everywhere, but they don't belong anywhere.
Yeah,
it's an insecurity thing.
I don't think he was insecure with his masculinity, though. He was insecure with his status as a martial arts.
Well, that too, but like I said, that all just kind of ties together into
because Aikido is not a real martial art like fucking, no martial art is a real martial art. The real martial art is fucking MMA. That's the real martial art. And he couldn't hang in MMA. No fucking way. And then he was not an actor, but he talked his way into some shit in Hollywood. So he goes into this fucking gig from a position of weakness. Aikido was not a real martial art. He was not in great shape. He ran like a bitch. He had little bitty arms. He was a big dude. He's very tall, but he was not a big, strong guy. Van Damme was a lot more physically fit. Arnold would have crushed him. That was all in the era of the fucking mega action star, and he would have been crushed against all those guys. And whenever he went on a talk show, they fucking asked him baiting questions, and they'd get him to lie about his physical prowess.
Because it's funny.
History. Because it was hilarious, and you could tell that he was lying.
Because it's funny how insecure he is and how obviously insecure it is. So that's why people ask them those questions, because they knew that they were baiting him, and they knew that he would come up with some, for some reason that I can't explain. I'm super badass and better than these ones. Yeah.
And they knew it.
And everybody knows that they were full of shit.
And
that's why it's funny.
We didn't know it. There wasn't any internet back then. If you just saw him on television, you didn't really get the inside joke. But everybody in Hollywood was fucking taking the piss out of that dude. Yeah. They knew he was fucking stuck up on himself and he was real fucking insecure about it. So they would just get him up there and fucking
it's very easy.
Put him on the couch and ask him questions to fucking get him in trouble.
That's the thing, man.
That's really what ended his career.
Very, very easy to make fun of people who are full of themselves and don't seem to realize that they're full.
There wasn't really anything behind Seagal, really. He was a fraud. He was a martial arts fraud and an acting fraud. But he is an amazing man as an individual. And he could fucking... And because he continued. He endured all that. He even lost his career, but he still endures. He makes money. He makes movies. And he could play guitar. He could actually sing.
About Punani.
About Punani Nanny. Yeah, about Punani. Yeah, he could say. And he had a television show, and he had a following. It's just amazing that he survived and kind of prospered in relation.
That he could parlay his lameness into.
Yeah. and he moves to Russia to escape charges, but has like 1 million kids. This is what I was telling you bitches on another fucking program. The more crazy and toxic and you are, the chances are the more children you have. He's got like 16 kids. That genome has been reinforced over and over and over again. If you can lie, if you can lie, you can make children.
Also, if you can rape people, you can make children.
What's that?
Also, if you can rape people.
If you can rape people, you can make... If you are a fucking highly toxic...
Just saying.
If you are highly toxic, you will multiply and prosper. Just like some shit out of the Old Testament.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. That's what idiocracy is about.
Quit propagating that bullshit.
Yeah, that has been reinforced over and over again in fucking historical genome.
No one likes that. Stop propagating it. No one likes that. Stop making more Steven Seagals. Knock it off.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean? Just whoever's responsible for that. I'm
T's in there giving lessons on how to make...
I'm registering a complaint.
T's in there giving lessons on how to make quiche grits and everything.
His dudeness says, hell yeah, Jenny is smoking. Well, thank you.
Yeah, she's dressed up like a fucking Bride of Frankenstein. Yeah.
Except I don't have my shoes.
He runs like Barry Goldberg on the Goldbergs. Yeah, the motherfucker runs like a bitch.
What is with the running? I don't understand why even I don't run that lame. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Come on.
I told the story. They tell me to stop hating. He still has a following. Yes, he does have a following.
I mean, there are whole YouTube videos of like clips of him running.
And then fucking D says, because I agree with Tom. He says, Idiocracy is a fucking documentary. Hell yeah. Idiocracy is a documentary. It's a roadmap of our future. That's exactly what it is.
Stupid people. They're killing me. Stupid people.
We're not getting smarter. We're getting dumber.
Well, I don't know, I don't know. That depends on what you mean. Like I said, it's a complex question.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that everybody has said that in every generation ever, going back thousands of years. So it's kind of hard to extrapolate.
I don't know.
Amanda Marie says, "Oh my God, Jenny, you're looking killer tonight. Thank you. Thank you."
Do a titty drop, Jenny.
Shut up.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Boob drop, Jenny. Okay. No.
Drop them where?
I'm just trying to make us some money. Just pull them up like that and drop them. No.
Pull them up like that and drop them?
No, I'm just dropping. I'm talking shit.
Water. Yeah, you are.
We got a lot of show left.
I know.
We got a lot of show.
So shut up.
It's almost 7.
Yeah, shit. Well, we still got like an hour and a half before we even have to think about leaving.
Right.
The shit doesn't even open till 9, and it's only like 10, 15 minutes away.
Right, and we don't have to be there on time. Right?
We're fine. Don't worry.
They're making me hungry about all these grits.
Well, after the show's over, maybe you can make some.
No, I'm not making grits. That's all carbs, man.
Well, I might just have like a protein bar or something before we leave, and then
because I don't want to drink on an empty stomach.
Well, no, but like I said, I can just. Well, all right.
Got the new curry there, but
I can have a
sandwich. Oh, you know what I have?
What?
I have all that hummus, and I have pita bread, and I have all those cucumbers. I can make that fucking.
Let's just have a cucumber and hummus sandwich, and then before we go, because I don't want to. I don't want stomach to be empty, but I don't want it to be full either.
I'm gonna drink some protein.
You know what I'm saying?
Some protein.
All right, so where was I before you went off on your Steven Seagal?
I'm answering the demands of the crowd.
Okay.
Like a gladiator in the arena.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
But all right, so as I was saying, Aileen killed her first dude, right? So she kills him, and apparently nobody missed the dude because they didn't really start looking for him until they found his car abandoned, right? And then they're like, oh, I wonder who this belongs to. So December 13th, 1989, these two guys were looking for scrap metal by kind of a dirt road along I-95 in Volusia County, my home county, Florida. And they found a body wrapped up in carpet. So they took fingerprints from this body, even though it was badly decomposed. However, they were able to identify this body as Richard Mallory. He had been killed from 3 shots with a .22. Now, when they were looking into, so they started investigating like why this dude got killed. Now, at this point, because like I said, this dude kind of had a reputation. One, he had a criminal record for sexual assault on a minor, among other things. He also hung out with a lot of shady motherfuckers. So, no shortage of suspects as to who might have shot the dude. Initially, the cops were going after this stripper named Chastity, because aren't they all? I feel like that's the second most common stripper name. Is it? Second or third? Chastity? Because it's ironic.
Back in the day, I think fucking now.
Well, this was in the late 80s. This is the late 80s.
Oh, okay. 2000s would have been Brittany.
Yeah.
Every slut was named Brittany.
Or Tiffany.
Tiffany or Brittany. I was married to a Tiffany. Yeah.
Well, I know that's why I said that. Yeah.
Tiffany's
that was his first wife's name.
Yeah. Tiffany's and Brittany's.
Although, yeah, well, I have a cousin.
Then it became like Kenzie. And shit like that, and fucking that was Lindsay and Kenzie and some of the ZI on
I kind of feel like in the 80s and 90s, maybe Cherry was the top stripper name. But Chastity, maybe a close second.
I think they'd probably, by the time that Cherry would have been in the 80s.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This was the 80s. Okay. Well, late 80s.
Yeah. The evolution of slut names.
Or Candy.
Yeah.
You know what's ironic? When I was born in 1972, my mom told me later she wanted to name me Candace. And I'm kind of like, you wanted me to be a stripper?
There are shit tons of Candaces. Lots of them.
Yeah.
Although
it's not a bad name.
It's a good name.
I felt like nobody, it was like a
nobody calls them Candy, though.
Candy,
although
Candy, I can't let you go.
Yeah.
That was Iggy Pop and Kate What's-Her-Face from the B-52s. That was a good song.
Yeah.
Brittany Irwin says, it's Brittany, bitch. Ugh. And no one spells it right.
Yeah.
Xanada says Madison is a big stripper name. Yeah, that's right. Also, the name of the mermaid in Splash from 1984. Just saying. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this stripper was named Chastity, and she was like their first suspect for shooting this dude for whatever reason. But obviously it wasn't her. So that case ended up going cold. They had no idea who had killed this motherfucker, like I said, because he had a lot of kind of shady connections or whatnot. May 5th, 1990. The body of an unidentified male found naked in Brooks County, Georgia, which is close to I-75, just across the state line from Florida. 2 .22 caliber slugs found in the remains. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation didn't know who this dude was, so they just found this naked dead dude with 2 .22 caliber bullet slugs in the body, and they don't know who he is. June 1st, 1990, another unidentified naked man found in the woods of Citrus County, Florida. This is about 40 miles north of Tampa, Florida. Now, this crime, the first suspect was a dude named Matthew Cocking, which, holy crap, that's a poor name waiting to happen, Matthew Cocking. He was the dude that had found the body. And I guess he was, like, acting really weird, like, when the police were interviewing him. So they're like, you're a suspect, man. He was, like, fucking shouting at them and threatening them and whatnot. So they kind of brought him in for a little while, but they determined later that it wasn't him, obviously. Now, they identified the body on June 7th as David Spears. He was from Bradenton, Florida, which is right around, it's like a suburb of Tampa. So that ended up clearing, the Cocking fellow. Now,
he's cocking on them fellas.
He's cocking on the fellas. Yeah. Thank you, Gadgy3. Stewart is a stripper name, is it? What are
male stripper?
What are some male stripper names? I don't know if Stewart would be the first thing that I would go to. I kind of feel like, if you guys are MST fans and you've seen the fucking what was it, Space Mutiny, where they like that big chunk-headed dude that was in the main role, and they came up with all this fucking names like Rock Hardpeck and shit like that. I kind of feel like those are like stripper names.
It's funny how you're bringing up Tiffany, right? My first wife.
Yeah.
That's like a stripper name. Well, her sister was a stripper, all right, and her name was Lindsay, and her husband, my brother-in-law, was a stripper. He was a male stripper, and he.
So it was a family business, kind of.
Well, those two okay. Met in the French Quarter as dancers.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember what his name is. Tom, also.
Tom the stripper.
Yeah, Tom, and he was a big kind of buffed out semi bodybuilder guy, good looking guy. Well, he owns one of the best strip clubs down there in the Miami area now.
Really?
Yeah, he called me, see how I was doing, and asked me if I fucking want to come work for him.
You want to go be a male stripper?
No, he said he needed a manager.
Oh, okay.
He says, dude, man, I need a manager, somebody to take care of this fucking place, man. These bitches are driving me crazy. And I was like, what? He goes,
bitches be crazy?
Yeah, these bitches are crazy, man. It's constant girl problems. You got to do this. You got to go pick them up and fucking then know their boyfriends and shit. And because he knew I was living here. This is about a year ago. Asked me if I wanted to come work with him. And I was like, no, I got shit going on here. You know, fucking. I told him about the show. And he goes, oh, yeah. And he looked at the show. He saw you. He thought you were really cool. He goes, if you want to relocate, man, fucking, you know, he might have been talking 6 figures. Maybe. Got a big old strip club down there.
You want to go work at a strip club?
It was too far south.
Okay. Well, yeah, Miami's kind of far.
Yeah, it was
That's
far
like a
south.
4-hour drive.
But he was like, fucking, he wanted, because, you know, we had mutual fucking stories to tell about our exes, because he's, of course, he divorced.
Man, you could have all
he divorced Lindsay. Yeah, he's like, those bitches were crazy.
So y'all could bond over that.
Then we were talking about our ex mother-in-law. We had some, yeah. He had fucking crazier stories than I had. You know, my ex was cute, but Lindsay was even cuter. But she was fucking crazy. And that's why I tell you guys, I give you the motherfuckers this good advice. Don't judge them by how they look. The better looking they are, the best. This is what I'm telling you. The better looking those women are, the crazier they are. They are fucking crazy.
Most of the time.
Because they grow up cute and they get their way forever since they were a little kid, and they get pampered, and shit does not age well. By the time they're fucking 30, they will drive you fucking up the goddamn wall. Just what I would say.
Somebody up thread said Eric's is a good male stripper name. I was like, my brother's name is Eric. And also, thank you, Mango, I think that was, that said Bob is a good stripper name. And Bob is my stepdad's name. He's like a real old man. Not a stripper, as far as I know. Hopefully not.
Yeah, she's talking about diabetes and shit. Then it says Tom's 100% white.
Erection.
100% right.
Sure. Yeah. That's Mercedes. Yeah, that's another one. I kind of feel like there was a thing for strippers being named Chastity or Cherry. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that was kind of a big thing. But this one was named Chastity. But she didn't do it, so it's irrelevant. So this unidentified body that they later identified as David Spears from Bradenton, who had been murdered, he was a heavy equipment operator, and he had last been seen on May 19th of 1990, and they found his truck on I-75 with the doors unlocked and the license plate missing. 30 miles south of that, in Pasco County, Florida, they found another man's naked body, found a few miles off I-75.
Hold on, let me ask you something.
What's that?
Mango says, I'm sure there's a market for older male strippers. Most male strippers are older. Most male strippers are bodybuilders, and a lot of them are in their 40s. But you'd be surprised, most of those girls are in their 40s too. They might look like they're in their 20s. They're in their 40s. And even Jenny gets fooled one time. That old boob girl we know that does all the cam work and shit, the gigantic fake boobs. She thought that was a girl that was some young girl. She's your age.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit older. But some people can pull it off. But a lot of the male strippers are in their 40s, 50s. But to make a living doing that, you have to be on your fucking game. They're bodybuilders, basically. And really the money, those women get out of control, but the money's is with guys, actually.
What do you mean?
Women will pay those guys, but really fucking dancing for other men, that's really where they make a lot of the money.
Well, yeah.
It's gay.
Because, I mean, women don't usually go to strip clubs. It's like the only time they hire a male stripper is like for a fucking,
it's like a bachelorette party.
Like a bachelorette party. That's pretty much the only time they would do it.
They used to have like...
They don't think about it
They used to have like ladies' nights at certain places, you know what I mean? And they would be packed. But that was from another era. That was pre-internet era. To do it now, it would mostly be male clientele. They'd be putting on shows for male.
Yeah.
For males.
Which, like I said, you
make money.
Yeah.
And those dudes are mostly...
Well, like I said, it was just like
those dudes are straight.
Thank you, his dudeness.
Yeah. Most of those dudes are straight. So, no matter what they're telling the crowd, they're straight.
Well, I mean, the thing about it, like I said, it was just like when Playgirl magazine first started.
Yeah.
And they kind of originally conceived it as, oh, we're making like a women's version of Playboy.
No, that's for
women
men.
didn't buy that shit.
That's for men.
Why would a woman buy a magazine of like a bunch of half-naked dudes? No woman would buy that. Yeah. Well, hardly any. I bought one once as a gag gift for somebody, but I think that was the only time I ever bought one.
Women don't spend money on porn.
Why would you?
Yeah. It's not a woman thing. Women aren't as visual as guys are. It's just...
I mean, some do, but like I said, in general, women like... If you're going to buy anything like porny, you're going to buy like erotica.
Yeah.
That's like
something
a story.
Read.
Yeah, something you read.
Yeah.
You don't want like pictures and shit.
Women are going to use their imagination and shit.
Yeah.
Imagine it. Men don't have imaginations.
Yeah, obviously.
No.
They obviously don't.
No. Not for that. It's a primitive sex drive.
It's just very,
What's that
very
bitch
funny.
look like? What's it look like?
And that's kind of like this. That's as far as it goes.
Yeah, what does it look like? It looks good. It's good. Yeah.
Very funny. Y'all are so simple. But yeah. All right. So
we know. We know how it works.
Yeah, I know.
We know how it works.
Women like penthouse letters.
Yeah.
They are kind of funny. All right. So yeah. So we found another naked man's body. Well, I didn't find it, but I'm just saying that we, the royal we, found another naked man's body a few miles off I-35.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So this body discovered June 6th, 1990. Very, very badly decomposed. The ME was not able to obtain fingerprints and could not estimate time of death. However, they were able to determine that this dude had been shot 9 times. They found 9 bullets in the body. The bullets were, it was kind of decomposed, obviously, because it had been a while. But they did figure out that it was from a .22 caliber weapon. At this point, they're kind of starting to think, well, probably, maybe this is the same killer. Now, this dude was actually later identified as being a man named Charles Carskadden. But, at the time they didn't know. So they call the Georgia Bureau of Investigation because they had heard of another case up there. And, they, at this point, like I said, they're starting to think, because at first, when you just find a random dude dead, and particularly the first dude that got killed that kind of had some real shady connections and whatnot, you're not initially thinking serial killer. You're just thinking he pissed the wrong guy off and some guy just like fucking shot him, right?
Sleaze and Cheese is in the fucking comments going, I find my girlfriend's in Mexico. That's an inside joke. I'm sitting in the house one time, I get a fucking live stream coming from Sleaze and Cheese. He's in a Mexican brothel streaming. Some girl sitting on a couch. She's like, should I hit this one? Yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, get that one. She's cute. I hear him cut the deal and everything for this fucking chick. And I thought he was going to take the camera into the fucking back room and give me a shot of him fucking stealing the deal, bro. You should have let that shit fucking
Are you guys even allowed to do that?
She didn't seem to mind.
I mean, you think that it would be
her.
allowed because it's like free advertising.
She was cute. She was sitting her fucking half-dressed ass right up in the front window. He walked by and goes, yeah, I'm going to get this one. Goes in there. She's cute. Probably about 22, 23.
Well, there you go.
She was friendly to him. Looked like the only one in there at the time, though. Fucking then some dude was trying to fucking hit him up for money for introducing him. There was a middleman tried to make some bucks off his gringo ass.
Sure.
It was fucking funny, man.
Well, talk some more about
about hookers.
Your porn adventures.
Wasn't a porn adventure.
And or whatever.
It wasn't a porn adventure. You just never can tell what'll happen on this channel. You got guys all over the world trying to show me their fucking debauchery and shit. Fucking, I've become like the king of these debauched motherfuckers. Like Tom, look what I'm doing. Hey, Tom, look what I'm buying. Hey, Tom, you want some of this? I'll send it to you. Just fucking, you guys need to stop offering me fucking this crazy shit because you're going to get my ass in fucking trouble on Messenger. You know they watch all that shit. I know it's cool. I don't care. I don't care if it's fucking women or anything that's legal, but stop trying to send me fucking illicit substances and shit, okay? You can't send that shit to me, all right? And you can't talk about them. You guys are fucking crazy. Yeah, Xander says Mexico's lit. Yeah, Mexico looks fucking cool. It's not the way it was when I was a kid and I remembered it. Fucking back in the 70s and the 80s, Tijuana was a fucking joke. But it was like, yeah, we're going to Tijuana. It was like a gag. But, you know, fucking Khan lives down there and fucking Sleaze and Cheese goes there every day. You know, he works over there and fucking it looks fucking fun, man. Kind of like the way Brazil was. I love Brazil. See what everybody's talking about. Mega says we should open a strip club. Strip clubs are a thing of the past, I think. I don't think they're going to last much longer.
What are you talking about?
He said we should open a strip club. I think strip clubs are basically a thing of the past. I don't really think they'll. You might have a few in places like Vegas and Florida. The internet and streaming is going to take over all that.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
you know, people can be lazy. It's like, why should I leave my house when I can just live stream a stripper right here and talk to her? You know.
Now I got guys going, fucking Xander's and Tom, there's this Mexican girl I'm looking at. I'll send you pictures. You can see if she passes your test. Yeah, man, fucking, I got good taste in Central and South American women. I fucking like South American women. That's what I grew up with, you know, Brazilian girls. You know, it's just a different deal. Yeah. Well, they're getting sidetracked.
Not you.
It's a different culture. It's a different culture. It's just a different way, and they're very fucking feminine. You know, in kind of like the mirror universe kind of way. They're also a little bit ruthless.
Jenny's face right now, LOL.
Yeah.
Well, you know. I'm used to it. You guys only get it a few hours a week. I have to put up with this 24/7.
Victor's saying, tell us about the culture. Start from the beginning. Dude, that's another show. I don't have time for that.
Well, yeah, that's the joke.
That's yeah.
Yeah. That's the joke. Everything on the internet now, right?
Yep.
All right. So where was I? So at this point, like I said, at least let me get through my notes. So tomorrow I don't wake up and go, I didn't even finish my fucking
You're halfway
notes.
through it pretty much.
Well, sort of.
Almost, yeah.
All right. So at this point, Aileen, spoiler alert, has killed like a bunch of dudes. But nobody is really like, twigged onto that fact yet. Because like I said, why would you think like a woman, like a prostitute was going around like killing motherfuckers? It doesn't happen all that often. So July 4th, 1990, a car veers off State Road 315 near Orange Springs, Florida, not too far from here, and kind of landed in the bushes. Now, this woman named Rhonda Bailey was sitting on her porch watching this shit happen. And she said that the car like crashed into the bushes or whatever, kind of fucked the car all up. And then these two women get out of the car like, holy shit, throwing beer cans into the woods and swearing at each other. So this woman says, she's like, basically there were two women. She's like the smaller one kind of wasn't saying anything. The big blonde, had kind of a cut or something on her arm and it was bleeding. And she was the one kind of talking. Now she saw Rhonda sitting there on the porch, this big blonde who was, spoiler alert, like I said, Aileen Wuornos. She said, please don't call the police. My dad lives just up the road. We're going there. So her and Ty, because that's who it was, get back in the car. The windshield was smashed and it had a bunch of other damage. But they actually managed to get the car kind of out of the brush. But the vehicle was kind of fucked up, so it didn't really go that far. So they ended up having to leave it just down the road, and then they started walking. Now, at this point, like a dude named Hewitt of the Orange Springs Volunteer Fire Department, he had gotten a call about the accident. Somebody had called about it. And so he kind of came up next to the two women who were walking and said, hey, were you guys the one in the car? You know, are you okay? At this point, Aileen starts swearing at him and says, no, that wasn't us. We don't need help. You know, essentially, fuck off. That's what she said. So he was like, okay, my bad. And he just kept on driving. Now, at this point, Marion County Sheriff's deputies found the car where it had been abandoned. This was a 1988 Pontiac Sunbird, gray with 4 doors. So, as I said, the windshield was smashed. Also, the glass in the front doors was smashed. And there were a bunch of blood stains in the car as well, like on the inside. And also the license plate was missing. A little fishy. So, the cops ran a search on the VIN number. Now, they found out that this car belonged to a dude named Peter Seams. Or Symes? I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. Sorry, dude. And this dude had disappeared on June 7th after leaving his house in Jupiter, Florida to visit relatives in Arkansas. So, you know, suspicious. So this dude, Peter Seams or Symes, was 65 years old. He was a retired merchant seaman, and he was in a Christian outreach ministry, much like BTK was. So basically, so they said it. So at this point, they're like, okay, well, these two women, reportedly, were driving a car that had belonged to this dude who has been missing since June 7th. And then a little less than a month later, these two women crash it into a bush and then pretend that they weren't in it. So that's a little suspicious. So they put out an APB on the two of them. They have like a description, and they have, you know, people like draw up the fucking, like what they look like and whatnot. So they send the kind of a whole layout of the case, sketches of the two women to the, you know, kind of the activity bulletin, whatever they have. So they're kind of like hoping that maybe this Peter Seams dude, or Symes, who owned this car, would eventually turn up alive. Although, spoiler alert, as I said, that would not be the case. Now, the next dude that was killed was a dude named Troy Barres. Now, he was a sausage salesman. Like, he worked for Gilchrist Sausage, and I guess he had a route. So I'm supposing he went to, like, various grocery stores. And
they got so many studs out there thinking they're sausage salesmen.
You're a sausage salesman. Yeah. That's what I was thinking, too, when I read about this. I was like...
Xander, you a fucking sausage salesman, aren't you, bro? All you motherfuckers out there. Mango's a sausage salesman.
Selling your sausage.
Yeah, okay. What you gonna be? I'm gonna be a street pharmacist and a sausage salesman.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my god. Please and Cheese is asking, I can't remember, was the girlfriend ever arrested? Actually, she wasn't, because I think that they just kind of let her skate because she agreed to, one, she was the one that got Aileen to confess, and two, she testified against her. So I think because I kind of think she knew what was going on, but I don't know. I don't think she was involved directly. I think she only knew like after the fact, you know what I mean? And then she just didn't turn her in. She did kind of say that later. So sausage salesman, up to, you know, don't make fun. The dude's dead. So the sausage salesman, Troy Barres. So he was on his delivery route from Gilchrist Sausage. Now this was July 30th, 1990. So he went out on his route, but he didn't come back to work. So the manager thought that was odd and starts calling around. And he said that, you know, he called out like all the stops on his route. And all the, you know, people said, you know, yeah, he didn't show up like to his last several stops for that day. So the manager of the plant and her husband that night, they go out and start looking for the dude. But they can't find him. So 2 o'clock in the morning, Troy Barres' wife actually reported him missing. 2 hours after that, Marion County Sheriff's deputies found his truck, left on the shoulder of State Road 19. Ooh, I'm very familiar with that, because that goes out to Ocala, where my mom lives. 20 miles east of Ocala. I know exactly where that is. The truck was unlocked and the keys were missing. Obviously, Troy Barres was missing also. They didn't find his body until 5 days later. There was a family and they were out on a picnic in the Ocala National Forest, which, like I said, my mom lives out there, so we've been out there a lot of times. They were looking for a picnic spot, like in a clearing off of Highway 19, and they found his body about 8 miles away from where his truck had been found. Obviously, this is Florida, and it's fucking July, so the body was real decomposed because it's real fucking hot outside.
Only takes a few days.
Yeah, and like I said, July and August are the hottest. I mean, it's just
steak soup.
Ridiculous. Yeah, I'm surprised if there's anything
massive fucking moving maggots just in about
I'm sure
3 or 4 days.
Just picture that shit. Gross. I'm sure it was like really nasty. They had to identify him because they couldn't get any fingerprints, obviously, because he was totally decomposed. His wife, however, did identify his distinctive wedding ring.
I thought you could say distinctive odor.
No. Well,
yeah, that's him.
After everybody dies, they pretty much all smell the same.
Yeah, that's him.
Pretty much all smell the same. No, she identified him by his wedding ring. So he had actually been killed with 2 shots from a .22 caliber gun, just like the other victims. 1 to the chest, 1 to the back. Now, again, I don't know if they were initially thinking serial killer on this, because this is not your traditional serial killer MO. 1, serial killers are usually dudes, and they usually target women, and they usually don't shoot them. They usually stab them or do something, because that's more like sexually exciting for them. You don't usually hear of a female serial killer that's just shooting dudes and not mutilating them or anything like that. It's very, very unusual. So I'm not blaming the cops for that not really coming to their, coming on their radar, because why would you think of that? Yeah. It's almost unheard of. Actually, if it wasn't for Aileen Wuornos, that would be unheard of. Which is why they didn't figure it out. So so for this particular crime, they thought that it was this dude named Curtis Blankenship, who was like a drifter. And he had actually, the reason they thought it was him was because he'd been hitchhiking on Highway 19 the same day that Troy Barres disappeared. And he got picked up, not by Troy Barres, but he got picked up on that same road, like by a truck. And so they thought, well, he was in the area, like right around the time where the dude would have died and blah, blah, blah. So maybe it was him. But, obviously later they found out that it wasn't. But they didn't really have any other suspects. Like I said, nobody suspects that it's a woman going around shooting dudes, because that very rarely happens. So, all right. So next victim that we're talking about is Dick Humphreys. Now, he had been working...
I'm sorry. His name is Dick Humphreys.
They all have four names. All right. I'm sorry, you guys. I know, like I said, they're all dead.
And now we got Dick Humphreys.
I know.
Tina says, Jenny, we need a female serial killer episode. I think we did one.
I need to do... I've been wanting to do another one, though, because like I said... I want to do a show about Amelia Dyer. I want to do a show about... Well, I mean, we did Angels of Mercy. We did... I mean, there's not as many. And I kind of feel like most of the female serial killers, like I said, are usually people that... I mean, we did Belle Gunnis. Yeah. She was... Honestly, if we're going to talk about female serial killers, she was the only one that I can think of that was similar to Aileen Wuornos, because Belle Gunnis was a completely practical serial killer in the sense that she was like, hey, I have a farm and all this money, and I'm looking for a dude to marry me to like join our fortunes. And then when you got there, she would just like make you cash some checks and get a life insurance policy, and then she would just like bump you off and bury you on the fucking farm.
They're in there fighting over food right now. Y'all need to knock it off about fighting over chorizo. Look, chorizo's good. If you guys don't know what that is, if you're up there in the honky motherland, chorizo is like a Hispanic, Mexican, Spanish. Mexico has it. Spain has it. It's a Latin sausage. It's good. It's red, though. Goya makes a vacuum. I want to say this to my survivalists out there. Goya makes a pack of fucking chorizo. It's red. It's vacuum packed that'll keep forever. We're for like 5 links of chorizo in there. It's good. You can eat that with grits. Which is shelf stable, real good with eggs, powdered eggs, You can dice it up, fry it, put it in make it a burrito, tacos, whatever you want. Chorizo's a good one. Real good. And then they're fighting over fucking Mexican or Spanish. They're both good. I've had them both.
Honestly, it's all good.
I'm not where I'm at right now, it's easier to get Spanish stuff because Goya sells it. But they sell it packaged just like an MRE. So if you ever need a combat ration, Goya chorizo. There's your protein. It's only like a couple bucks too. Walmart has it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'm done. I was food pontificating.
Hugo says, Jenny, what was the name of the countess that killed maids and bathed in their blood? Countess Bathory. Erzabet. Bathory. Yeah. And
we don't know exactly what she did.
Yeah, because it's hard to determine because I kind of feel like she was probably a shitty human being, but I kind of feel like maybe some of the shit was exaggerated after she died, perhaps.
There may have been a motive to steal her land.
Okay. There's a lot of that shit going on back then.
She was accused of lesbianism, which may have been a motive to fucking steal her land. It's difficult to say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You have to think, too, it's just like kind of the witch trials.
Right.
You know, how many of those women were just like weirdos, or how many of the women were just kind of like, hey, we just want to like take your shit.
You see, in that era, especially in that place, a woman's existence really depended on her husband.
Yep.
Her husband was dead. Her husband had a lot of fucking land. Could have been some other men in the surrounding area that said, man, we want that land. We got to get rid of that woman.
Yeah, because she doesn't have a man to look after her.
And then they would go like, well, you know, she is a lesbo. And fucking she's with this woman that dresses as a man. We can use that against her. If that really happened. I think it did. And then they said, you know, there's all these missing women. Let's just say she killed them. We'll get a corrupt priest to go down there with some guys and we'll make up a story and say that we found all these bodies.
I mean, it could possibly be that she didn't really do anything.
Could have been a total hoax.
I mean, that would not shock me. It would not shock me.
No way of knowing. Although I lean towards she did it. I lean towards she was a serial killer.
Maybe did something, but I don't think it's kind of like a thing where, you know, it's kind of like a Vlad the Impaler situation where it's like she probably did something, but I kind of feel like shit about her got wildly exaggerated.
Yeah, and it's just feelings. She's saying feelings, and that's really all we can deal with because the information there's not enough information, and you don't know if you can trust it. Evidently, over there in Wallachia or Hungary, where was it? I think it's called Hungary now. Where that?
I don't even think it's called Hungary anymore.
It's not even Hungary. Okay, I don't know where that is nowadays. A lot of the borders had changed over time to the names of the countries. Evidently, her diary is still in the state archives, but they won't let anyone read it, and it makes you wonder why.
Maybe because there's
nothing in it.
Maybe because there's not shit in there. Yeah, she didn't do anything, and they just made it all up.
Yeah, so we just don't know.
Possible.
And we only have the words of the investigators, and we don't know how credible they were.
And it was so long ago that I don't think we'll ever determine.
Yeah. And that's the problem, you know. I mean, people can be accused of all kinds of fucking crazy-ass crimes, and they'd be totally innocent. It's happened many times.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it is that it happened a lot more back then because there wasn't really any way to, like, prove shit.
Mm-hmm. You didn't really have to prove shit. You didn't. You just had to put out a story. There was no proof. You didn't need it.
And as long as everyone bought it, they were just kind of like, yeah, suppose so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't know.
Yeah, burn her at the stake or wall her up. They walled her up alive, actually. Yeah. But yeah, so we were talking about the next victim, and then everyone got all Twitter-pated when I said that his name was Dick Humphreys. Yeah. Sorry, that's his name. So he was the next victim. So he was actually, this makes me sad because this is kind of like, you know, one of those movies where they say they're only one day away from retirement and then they get killed, like in the buddy cop movie. Okay, so Dick Humphreys, he was at his last day of work at the Sumterville office. He worked for the Florida Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services. He was actually, he was an investigator and he looked into like abused children cases. Mm. Now, he wasn't retiring. He was just moving to the Ocala office, but it was his last day at the Sumterville office. He was 56 years old. He was actually previously had been a police chief in Alabama. He had also been married to his wife for 35 years, and I believe that they had celebrated their wedding anniversary just the day before he disappeared. because that was September 10th. And yeah, he disappeared September 11th, 1990. Now, on the evening of September 12th, his body was found in Marion County. He'd been shot 7 times, again, by a .22. They found his car later on in Suwannee County. Now, about a month after that, they found another naked male body. This was Walter Antonio. Now, he was found on a logging road in Dixie County. He was 60 years old, a truck driver, and he had also worked as a security guard and was in the reserve police. He had been shot 4 times with a .22. He was found on November 19th. When he was found, he'd been dead for less than 24 hours. His car was found 5 days later on the other side of the state in Brevard County. Now, at this point, finally, I think, the cops finally were like, okay, I think all of these crimes were committed by the same person because, like I said, the caliber of the pistol was the same in every single case. It just seemed like a very similar, kind of shit. Now, at this point, too, to their credit, the cops were kind of like, okay, now, nobody hitchhikes anymore, really. This is 1990. So, obviously, these dudes are picking, because they're getting killed in their own cars. So I said, they're picking up, and if no one's hitchhiking, then obviously they're picking up somebody that either needs a ride or is a prostitute. So at this point, they're kind of like, we're maybe looking at a woman that is doing this. And then they were thinking back to the accident with the 2 women that had run away from the car that they found out later belonged to Peter Seams, who was one of the victims. So they're like, we need to look for these 2 because this is the most likely scenario that we're looking at right now. Because like I said, it's because no one hitchhikes. They're like, even if someone was hitchhiking, a dude would not pick up another big scary looking dude. It's like they're obviously either going to pick up a prostitute or they're going to pick up somebody that they don't perceive as any threat to them. So again, they thought it was a woman. So they go to the press. The press releases the the sketches and all that other kind of stuff, and are like, they're kind of like soliciting the public for information. So the leads start coming in mid-December. The cops have a bunch of tips, and a bunch of the tips are referring to Aileen and Ty, although that's not always what people thought their names were. So this dude in Homosassa Springs, which I think is over on the West Coast, if I remember correctly, he said that these 2 women that were in the sketches had rented a trailer from him about a year prior, and he said that their names were Tyra, which, was her name, Ty, and Lee, which was what Aileen was known as. There was also a woman in Tampa who said that the women had worked at her motel south of Ocala. She said that their names were Tyra Moore, which was Ty's real name, and Susan Blahovec, which was an alias that Aileen sometimes went by, although they didn't know that till later. They also had an anonymous person call in and say, yeah, I knew those people. They bought an RV from me in Homosassa Springs, and their names were Ty Moore and Lee Blahovec. And this person also said Lee was the dominant one, and that she was a truck stop prostitute. And this caller also said that they were lesbians. Now, so at this point, somebody calls in, or like they're kind of investigating some tips that they got from Port Orange, which is a little bit south of Daytona Beach. I've been there many times. Many of my relatives live there. So at this point, they had kind of tracked down where these 2 women were. So they were kind of like watching them. What they think happened was that the couple was staying at Fairview Motel, like I said, which is kind of like a shitty, if you see the motel, I don't even know if it's still there anymore, but I remember passing it many times. It looks like a fucking flop house type of hotel. So they'd kind of been living there off and on. So Aileen had registered there under a pseudonym, and her pseudonym was Cammie Marsh Green. Now, they lived in the motel, and then for a little while, they moved into this other apartment that was behind a restaurant that was kind of near the hotel. But then they kind of ended up like living back at this like shitty motel. They left there in early December. But then Aileen came back by herself and stayed there until December 10th. So they run a driver's license and criminal record information on Tyra Moore and the pseudonyms, which they didn't know at the time, Susan Blahovec and Cami Marsh Green. Now, Tyra, better known as Ty, didn't have any record. She had like some minor like breaking and entering shit, but like the charges had been dropped. That was way back in 1983. She didn't have a record otherwise. Now, under the name Susan Blahovec, Aileen had a single trespassing arrest. Her other alias, Cami Marsh Green, had no arrests record at all. However, when they looked at the driver's license for Susan Blahovec, the two licenses didn't match. Like the picture wasn't the same. So they figured that this was obviously pseudonyms of someone else. So they go back to the Green ID and did a deeper dive on that. So in Volusia County, which like I said, that's where Daytona Beach is, that's where I'm from, they chucked around in a bunch of pawn shops. And they found out that in Daytona Beach, someone going under the name Cami Marsh Green had pawned a camera and a radar detector. And I guess at the time, to pawn something, you had to leave a thumbprint. So they found the records, they ran the thumbprint, and they found out, too, that these items that were in the pawn shop had belonged to Richard Mallory, the first victim of Aileen Wuornos. This was in Ormond Beach. So she had also pawned a bunch of tools that belonged to another victim, David Spears. And like I said, it left her thumbprint on the thing because that was like that's the law. So they run the thumbprint. And they did a computer search, but they didn't find anything right away. But because they thought that there must be something going on because two victims, shit had been pawned at this particular shop, they're like, okay, well, there has to be something to this. So they actually went to Volusia County, went through all the records by hand, and they found a match. Now, the match was to a weapons charge, which had an outstanding warrant. However, that person's name was Lori Grody. So like I said, Aileen Wuornos, I feel like maybe a lot of people don't know this because I didn't even remember this aspect, but she went by a bunch of different aliases. So, and she was arrested under a bunch of different names. So, yeah, so that matched the name Lori Grody. So they kind of look into that. They also found a bloody palm print inside Peter Seam's Sunbird, which was the car that the women had crashed into the bush. And that also matched prints belonging to someone named quote-unquote Lori Grody. So they send all this to the National Crime Information Center. And at this point, they get pings from elsewhere in Florida. They get pings from Colorado. They get pings from Michigan, other arrest records. And they all turned out to be, guess who? Aileen Carol Wuornos. Those were all her aliases, but obviously same fingerprints. So at this point, they know who they're looking for. So they decide they're going to do kind of like a little stakeout. So they start looking early January 1981. They have a couple pairs of undercover dudes, and they pretended they were going by the names Bucket and Drums. And they said that they were drug dealers from Georgia. And they started kind of like casing the streets around Daytona Beach, looking for Aileen. So they actually spotted her 3 days after they started their little, undercover shit. They found her at a pub in Port Orange. Now, what ended up happening? Okay, so I guess there wasn't a lot of communication between some of the different law enforcement agencies at this point, because the undercover dudes were like, okay, we're gonna find her and we're gonna kind of pretend that we're drug dealers and we're going to get information out of her, and we're doing this slowly, right? Well, I guess nobody told the Port Orange police because the undercover dudes are there trying to work their magic or whatever. And then the Port Orange cops show up And they don't arrest her, but they're like, hey, ma'am, we need to talk to you outside. And like the undercover officers are like, fuck me, they're gonna like fuck up the whole thing, right? So what they did, so they're like, so the undercover guys are like calling the Port Orange like police, being like, hey, dude, we're like right in the middle of a fucking, you know, stakeout or like an operation or whatever. So like back off, right? So they said, don't arrest her, like don't do anything. So they finally got word back to the cops, and the cops didn't arrest her. They were just like, oh, you know, sorry, ma'am, whatever. It was just somebody else or whatever. So she goes back into the bar, none the wiser. So at this point, the two undercover cops start talking to her. They buy her a bunch of beers, you know, and try to get her talking. They just wanted her to like admit to something. Now, they tried to give her a ride, but she said no. And she left about 10 o'clock. So I don't know if she knew that they were cops, but she was for sure like super suspicious of people, which, like I said, will kind of come up a little bit later on. So at this point, they have two other dudes who are in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and they're kind of following her down Ridgewood Avenue, which, like I said, I know where that is as well. That's kind of where, that's where the porn theater used to be. That's where some of the strip clubs were. That's where Judy's Jazzy Boutique was. You know, so it's kind of like, that's where all the hookers hung out. So they're following her down Ridgewood Avenue in their car, like with their lights off. And so at this point, they were going to like stop her too, because everybody knows who she is at this point, right? But, you know, the undercover people are like, no, man, just like let her go where she's going to go. We want to see how this develops. So they let her go where she was going. So she ended up going to this biker bar. Like I said, I know where that is too, called The Last Resort. Very famous biker bar, which I don't know if it's still there, but it was there for a long time afterward. And like I said, Aileen Wuornos is like their most famous. That's like their claim to fame. So they have like murals of her, like all over, like somebody painted all over the walls, like with her quotes and shit like that. It's crazy. You know, and they'll talk about her like if she shows up. It's like I said, it's one of the things that makes it famous. So she goes to The Last Resort. The undercover cops get there, buy her more beers, kind of try to get her talking, whatever. Now, apparently, so they talked to her a while, and then they offered a ride again. She said no, and she ended up sleeping at the bar. Like I said, which she did quite often. They had a coffin there you could sleep in, if that was your thing. Also, they had an old, like, seat out of a car, you know, one of those big, like, bench seats or whatever. They had, like, that out in the back, and they let people sleep on there, you know, if they didn't have any place to go, or if they were too drunk to go home or whatever. So that's where she slept. She slept on the old car seat behind The Last Resort. And this was, sadly, her last night of freedom, because she would be arrested the next day. So the next afternoon, the undercover cops, going by the name of Bucket and Drums, like I said, they had transmitters on, and they kind of went back to The Last Resort. Aileen was still there, so they were kind of like talking to her, you know, telling her what was going on. Now at this point, they were actually planning to arrest her, but The Last Resort, as I said, is kind of a biker bar. It's a dinky, like trashy dive kind of place, but during Bike Week, Biketoberfest, you get like thousands and thousands and thousands of motherfuckers there, and they set up outdoor stages. They have like fucking big outdoor barbecues. They have all this kind of shit going on. So that's what they were doing there at this point. So they were doing a barbecue. All these bikers showed up and whatnot. So at this point, they're like, okay, well, should we... Oops, I knocked his glasses off. Should we arrest her before all this bullshit starts? And they're like, yeah, go ahead and do it. So basically the two guys stepped forward and said to her, it's like, hey, look, we're undercover cops. You're under arrest. Now, they didn't tell her at first. They said she was just under arrest for the weapons violation. They didn't tell her she was under arrest for murder because they didn't want her like freaking out or whatever. So they arrest her. They said, hey, if you want to come back to our motel room and get cleaned up, you can. So she did that. So they took her back to their hotel, and she got all cleaned up, and then they took her in. So, as I said, they did not tell her that she was being arrested for murder. They just said it was for the outstanding warrant under the name Lori Grady. It was a weapons violation. They said, that's what you're being arrested for. That's what we're questioning for you. So, you know, so she wasn't overly alarmed. They didn't want her, like, flipping out on them. Also, they were still looking for Tyra Moore, who, in the meantime, had kind of taken off. So they were still looking for her because they didn't know if she was kind of an accessory to the crimes, if she knew anything about them. So they were still looking for her as well, and they wanted to kind of keep all their options open. So January 10th, they ended up finding Tyra Moore. She had actually left Florida. I guess her and Aileen had sort of had a falling out, and yeah, a little bit. And Ty had taken off. She was actually staying with her sister in Pennsylvania. So what they did was they sent a couple cops. I dropped your glasses actually,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I see them.
I don't know where they went. Yeah, they're there. So they fly up to Pennsylvania to interview her. Now, when they get up there, they read her Miranda rights or whatever, but they didn't charge her with anything. So they basically said, we want you to give a statement. Like, we don't know how involved you were with the crimes. But you know, we're listening to whatever you have to say. We want you to make a statement. So at that point, you know, after they told her, like, you know, don't perjure yourself, you can get in trouble, blah, blah, blah. So Ty says, okay, she said, I knew about the murders since the first one. She said, ever since Aileen came home with Richard Mallory's car, and Richard Mallory was the first victim. She's like, ever since she came home with that dude's car, I knew that she was killing people. And Aileen had actually told her, allegedly, that she had killed a dude that day. But Ty apparently told her, don't tell me anymore. She didn't want to be involved in it. She didn't want to be a party to it. She just like, you just do what you do, but I don't want to hear about it. That's basically what she told her. So she did say that sometimes Aileen would come home and say, you know, she'd come home with a bunch of money or with a different car or something like that. And she'd be like, hey, I killed this dude to get it. And Ty'd be like, I don't want to know. That's all she would say. So she didn't want to know about it. So she did actually know that Aileen was killing people. But the issue that Ty had was that, I guess, she said that the more I knew about it, the more I felt like I needed to report her, and I didn't want to report her because I loved her. So I didn't want to report her to the police, even though I suspected that she was killing people. You know what I mean? She didn't see her kill people, apparently, but Aileen did tell her that she had killed people, and I guess she didn't really have any reason to disbelieve her, but she didn't want to report her, so she just was kind of like, yeah, I know nothing. She just didn't want to know about it. That's basically the route that she took. She said, too, at the time, that she was a little bit afraid of Aileen, that Aileen had a really bad temper, that if Aileen had killed other dudes, you know, had killed dudes being angry at them, she's like, what would happen if she got angry at me? Maybe she'd kill me as well. I don't really know. So that was another excuse that she gave, that she was afraid of her.
T and the British people in there fighting over guacamole. Look, to all you Brits, if you never had guacamole because you can't get it in fucking Britain, there's a lot of recipes. T will show you one in there. If you can't, if you never had guacamole, you're just fucked up. It's a cool condiment you put on chips. You can put it in tacos, burritos, whatever you want. It's cool and creamy. It's a little bit spicy, not much. It's avocado, tomato, garlic, some spices, a little bit of onion. It's just you just can't beat it. Waka is a fucking avocado in Spanish. Waka. Mole means sauce. It's avocado sauce. That's what it means. Guacamole. Fucking fantastic.
I love guacamole.
I showed Brazilians, because Brazilians have avocados. When I lived there, I showed Brazilians how to make guacamole. They fucking loved it. Loved it. They started eating it. This is back in the 80s.
I mean, guacamole is just good. You can just eat it on, like, tortilla chips.
Yeah.
You don't even need to, like, add anything to it.
Back in the 80s, a Brazilian have never even heard of guacamole. They didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I showed them how to make it. It's easy. A little bit of lemon to keep it from turning brown.
Mango says I make my own. Yeah,
yeah, you make your own.
We make our own, too, sometimes.
Yeah. You can just use, if you don't have a seasoning, you can use just a little bit of just standard taco seasoning in it to cheat, you know. But there's a lot of recipes out there. You'll see. Now, the Mexicans will usually blend it in a blender and make it smooth, almost runny. It's good. I prefer the California version.
I like it kind of chunky.
Yeah. California Waka sauce is chunky. It's just a mash. You dice an avocado up with maybe like a can of Rotel, some seasoning, a little bit of garlic, a little bit of lemon or lime, and just kind of mash it just slightly. You know, a bunch of different ways you can do it.
What are you doing back there, Pook?
Yeah.
You get in trouble?
But the blended, that's how they do it in Mexico. I don't think it's as good as the California one. Sorry. Unless Kanavatslan can show me a recipe of the blended stuff that I think beats the California version. And mostly, so far, I think the Mexican versions of Mexican food are better than the Cal-Mex and Tex-Mex. But I think California's got Mexico when it comes to guaca sauce so far. What are you doing, Boo?
Catherine X says, have you ever heard of the Fred and Rosemary West case here in England a few good years ago? Yes, we have. We actually did that on one of our Valentine's Day shows, because we did Killer Couples, and we might have done, I think we did Fred and Rosemary West on the same show that we did Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, the Moors murderers, I think.
Man, look at this.
What?
Con just sent me something. It's shrimp, ceviche, and tuna. He says the hard Jaguar's going to the seafood. This is just a few minutes ago. Down Tijuana.
That does look
good. It looks good. It looks very good. He's always showing me what he's eating. Trying to make me jealous. Fuck those guys. They eat good up there. They're down there.
Mango says, I like the chunks too. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of like anything. Just like I like chunky peanut butter rather than smooth peanut butter. I like something with like chunky in it. It's gotta be chunky. You know? All right, so can I finish this up?
Yep, finish it up.
All right.
Finish it up, Jen.
All right, so at this point, like, the investigators asked Ty if she would come back to Florida with them and help them in the investigation. And Ty agreed. At this point, they really wanted Aileen to confess to what she had done because they thought that would, bolster their case, obviously. So they wanted Ty to help them out in that regard. So what they were planning on doing was that they were going to install Ty in a motel in Daytona Beach. And since Aileen was in jail on what she thought was the weapons violation, like while they were investigating her, she's like, well, we'll have Ty call her and try to make her incriminate herself or try to make her confess, right? Because she's saying, hey, my mom gave me money and I came down here to get the rest of my stuff. And her story was that she was supposed to tell Aileen that the cops were hounding her and her family for the murders, right? So they were kind of hoping to trade upon Aileen's warm feelings toward Ty, and that she wouldn't want Ty or her family to be harassed, or she wouldn't want Ty to go to prison for something that she had done. So that's the angle that they were shooting at. So they actually kind of got Ty to call several times, and they kept talking and shit like that. Now, at first, the thing about it, so Ty starts calling on January 14th, right? 1991. Now, at this point, as far as I know, Aileen still thought she didn't know anything about the murders. I mean, she didn't know that she was being held for the murders. She thought that she was still just there under the outstanding warrant, the weapons violation. So, so Ty is trying to get her to talk about the murders, but all Aileen will say on the first phone call is that she thought she was only there for that concealed weapons charge in 86 and a traffic ticket. Although she did kind of make indirect mention to the murders and said, yeah, I know about that, but I'm not one of their suspects, right? The thing about it, though, is that Aileen seemed to be pretty, hip to the shit. So, because, as soon as Ty, started talking about the murders on the phone, Aileen got suspicious that she was being monitored, or that she was, which she was. So, Aileen's not dumb. So she kept asking her, is there anybody else in the room with you? Or is somebody listening to us or something like that? So she was suspicious from the beginning, and she wouldn't really say anything that would incriminate herself. If she was going to talk about the crimes, she always talked to him she'd talk about them real cryptically, using code words and shit like that. Because she figured, and rightly so, that someone was, monitoring the phone calls and was listening to what she was saying. So She was kind of like hip to that, like from the beginning, right? So Ty keeps calling her for several days, right? And then, so Ty keeps like kind of trying to like turn the screws, like, look, man, like the cops are really coming after me. They're coming after me. They're coming after my family and shit like that. She's not saying anything directly to Aileen, like, hey, you know, you need to confess to this shit. But she's just like, man, they think I did it. And, you know, they're really coming after me and all this kind of shit. And in the end, as suspicious as Aileen was, that she was being monitored, it did actually end up working in the end, because she did actually have enough feelings for Ty to not want her to go to prison, right? So they were like, you know, so they're talking on the phone. And she basically, after several days of this back and forth, Aileen says to Ty over the phone, she's like, just go ahead and let them know what you need to know, what they want to know, or anything. I will cover for you because you're innocent. I'm not going to let you go to jail. If I have to confess, I will. And she did. January 16th. She actually came forward and confessed to the murders, ostensibly to keep Ty from going to jail. Now, interestingly, so she confesses on January 16th to a couple of the investigators. And the first thing that she wanted them to know was like, look, Ty didn't have anything to do with this. You know, I did tell her about it, but she wasn't there. She didn't know anything. She didn't have anything to do with it, so leave her alone. But another thing she started out was, she's like, yeah, I killed all these dudes, but I killed them all in self-defense. Basically, she was like, every single dude that she killed, which was 7 guys, if you're counting, had tried to rape her, attack her, threaten her, or something like that, and she wasn't having it. She got afraid, and she shot them to keep them from victimizing her. Now, as I said, it seems reasonable to assume that the first dude she killed, Richard Mallory, because like I said, you know, they didn't even bring this up at the trial, but they found out later that that dude was a convicted rapist, or like a child molester. And so had the jury known that at the beginning, maybe they would have gone a little softer on Aileen. So I can totally believe that maybe he tried some shit and then she shot him, like in self-defense. I buy that. The other victims, not so much, because I kind of feel like after that, she, like you said, I don't know if she necessarily got a taste for it, but she got to a point where she was just on a hair trigger. One dude had done that. You know, no one was going to do it again. So you so much as like sneezed or looked at her in the wrong way, and she was just going to shoot your face off, whatever you did. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like it got to that point. So I can buy that the first one was maybe self-defense. The other ones, I don't know if I buy it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're talking about Mexican sauces in there. Let me jump in. If y'all in the comment sections, Con of Aztlan from Tijuana taught me a really good fucking sauce I want to tell you guys about. You need an immersion blender. It's like a little wand with a fucking rotating blade. All right, that's a good. You can use a regular blender, but it's easier if you have an immersion blender. Get you a jar of jalapenos with a ladle. Throw some jalapenos in the bottom of a can or a bowl or whatever. You need it. You're going to mix in it. You put some of the jalapenos in there, and then you put a little bit of the jalapeno juice in there also. You pour dried chipotle powder. You can get it in the spice section. If not, a can of chipotle peppers. You put that in there and you blend it together. If it's too thin, just keep adding dried chipotle into it until it thickens, and it'll turn into like into a dark red paste, a little bit thinner than say hummus. It's smoky and real spicy. If it's too thick, add a little bit more of that damn jalapeno juice to it out of the jalapeno jar. Fantastic. Especially once it's been sitting for about a day in the refrigerator. You want to make a lot of it at once. It's a really, really good jalapeno sauce. A really good chipotle salsa. That's Khan's family recipe right there. Fucking swinging.
And you just told everybody on the
internet. Told
internet.
Everybody. I gave it to her and she's like, yeah, it's pretty good. And she doesn't like things that are hot. It's real smoky. It's not real hot. It's more smoky flavored. Like a smoked chipotle pepper. Yeah, got nice. Real nice.
Yeah, hot stuff does not agree with me anymore. Yeah. Well, it never did to that great an extent, but especially now that I'm older, I can't eat anything hot anymore. I'll be suffering for 2 days.
Khan's in there under the name Hard Jaguar because his channel got fucking deleted. He's Hard Jaguar, that's who it is now. He's laughing because he goes, the secret is out. Yes, that shit was good. I got a big jar of that shit in the fucking in the refrigerator. That's my new go-to. It's like a salsa. Real good.
They make me hungry. We're gonna have some hummus after the show.
Yeah.
We're done. Before we go out.
Yeah, let's have hummus, yeah.
Because that'll be good.
Right.
So basically she tells the cops, I killed all those dudes, but it was self-defense. And she was just given so many details and shit like that. Apparently her attorney, who was assigned to her, he was a public defender, he basically said to her, do you realize these guys are cops? You're just like doing their work for them, telling them all this information. And she said, I know. And they wanted to hang me, and that's cool because maybe, man, I deserve it. I just want to get this over with. That's what she said. So she knew what she did was bad. She knew. You know what I mean? So at this point, because she's a woman serial killer, a predatory serial killer who killed random ass strangers, which, like I said, is pretty much unheard of. So this was a massively, like, all over the fucking, for sure all over the US. I don't know how widespread it went all over the world, but she got fucking book deals. She got all kind of shit. Now, in Florida, you are not allowed, like if you're a criminal, you're not allowed to profit off of your crimes. You can totally write a book about it, but the money does not go to you. Usually it will go to the victim's family or it will go to somebody else. They don't allow you to make money off of the shit. But there is no law against her lawyers or her family members or anything like that, like profiting off the crimes. But so a lot of them did get, offers and shit. But yeah, so she's just all over the place, and she kind of seemed to get all into her being famous. She was getting into the fame, so she just like started talking her goddamn head off, and the more times she told the story about what had happened and all the people that she killed, it seemed like every time she told it, it would be more, she kind of like made herself seem more sympathetic each time, I guess. You know what I mean? Like she would make it seem more like these dudes had it coming kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, I can buy it for the first time.
Nah, she got addicted to it. It was just
But
easier.
after that,
I think it was easier to kill these dudes than to blow them.
well, I mean, in general,
pockets.
That's true. It is easier to shoot a dude than to blow a dude. But I'm just saying that I think, like I said, the first time, probably the dude did try to attack her and she shot him. And then, like, after that, she was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to start doing this every time.
Think about it from her point of view. She's got to blow this nasty motherfucker, right? And maybe she's going to get 10, 20 bucks.
Yeah.
Why not just kill? And she got to swallow and everything, probably spit it out. It's going to be in her fucking mouth. Why not just fucking shoot the dude and then take all his money?
Yeah, then you get money.
There might be 100, 200 bucks in there. Yeah.
And whatever else he's got in the car.
So you might get 200 bucks. So, that's what she did. That's why I don't have any sympathy. Any sympathy for her.
Like I said, had it just happened one time, I might have had sympathy, but she just kept on doing it.
Nah, she
obviously
just killed those dudes for the money.
Yeah, I think after a time, like you said, it just got easier because she'd done it once.
Yeah.
And, she's like, well...
She got sick of fucking blowing these dudes.
Yeah, it was a practical consideration.
Right.
She's just like, well, I'll just kill them and take all their shit. It's like, no one will miss them.
And she's a lesbian. You know what I mean? This is like against her nature, pretty much, to do this.
I think she was bi. She didn't really start hanging out with women until she was much older.
Yeah, I think she's probably sick of dudes by then. She was fucking lesbian, I think. Because...
she married a dude initially. Like, she had boyfriends and shit like that. But I do kind of feel like when she met Ty, then she kind of discovered.
I think her upbringing and then a rough life turned her against men. And then when she got into prostitution, I think that her fucking turning against men accelerated.
Oh, yeah, big time.
She just saw them, these motherfuckers are scum. And,
well, yeah, because I mean, when you have to think, if you're working as a sex worker, and apparently, like, not to be mean, but you know, somebody that looked like Aileen Wuornos looked, and you're in Daytona Beach, for Christ's sake, which
you're gonna get like a scuzzy looking motherfuckers.
You're gonna get some scuzzy looking clientele, right? Right. And so I understand that it would be very easy to become disillusioned with the entire male gender, right? Because of the examples of it that you were dealing with from day to day. I understand that.
Her clientele fucking was bad. I mean, we know girls. I'm not gonna name them, but we know girls that are in the goth scene that are, I guess you could say, are sex workers, but they have a hard time getting jobs because there's not enough clients. They're real picky, you know, and they want quite a bit of money. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. I'll show you who I'm talking about. And all she does is constantly fucking basically e-bag, showing pictures of herself. And so, you know, in a very different... I don't think she's against men. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not like Aileen Wuornos. It's not like there's a bunch of these nasty... I
kind of feel like Aileen Wuornos just kind of hated everybody. Which, like I said, I kind of get that because, you know, the way that she grew up was just appalling. Yeah. And she learned from a very young age, not only that you couldn't trust anyone because everyone sucked and would lie to you, but also that selling your body for shit was the only way to get any attention.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah. Makes sense now, huh? Constant posting.
But yeah, that's, you know, like I said, and I'm not excusing what she did, obviously, because she killed some people in cold blood. Right. I'm just saying that's probably why she didn't do it for the same reason that male serial killers do it, is what I'm saying. Yes, she killed strangers, but, and no, it wasn't entirely practical. Like, yes, she did rob them. Did she enjoy it, like, in a sexual way? No, I don't think so. I think she was just an angry person, and she...
Toby's coming tonight.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, my leather daddy's showing up tonight.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm going to get some video of me and Toby fucking around.
Oh, that's cool.
We're about there.
Oh, I'm glad he's got... I don't think I've ever seen him at Mannequins before. Yeah. We saw him at Ibar a few months ago. But yeah. So, now, okay, so listen to this weird shit. So, she's in jail, and she's pretty much confessed to everything. Although, like I said, from the beginning, she was kind of saying that it was all self-defense, that these dudes were all trying to attack her in some way, and she just, like, shot him or whatever. But so she's sitting in jail, and she gets a letter from this woman named Arlene Prawley. I'm not really sure how to pronounce her last name. She was 44 years old. She was a born-again Christian from Ocala, running a horse boarding facility. So your mom might have known her.
Maybe.
Back in the day. Oh, this was a long time ago. This was like 1991, 1992.
No, she was in Brazil.
Oh, okay, so probably not. Yeah. But she was in the same industry that your mom was in. So, and it was in Ocala. So this woman said that she saw Aileen's picture in the newspaper and wrote her a letter. And the letter starts, "My name is Arlene Prawl," whatever, however you pronounce it. "I'm born again. You're going to think I'm crazy, but Jesus told me to write to you." Yeah. Man, Jesus is always telling you. Okay, so she gives her the home phone number. Aileen calls her on January 30th. And apparently, Arlene, like Jesus told Arlene... allegedly, that Aileen was really a good person and that she needed an advocate and somebody, you know, to stick up for her. So Arlene decided that that was going to be her. So she starts visiting Aileen and giving her like advice on her defense and stuff. So Aileen ends up firing her old attorneys, gets new ones. Arlene is out there talking with like reporters and shit. And then she's saying like weird ass shit like our souls are bound together. Like we're like Jonathan and David in the Bible, which like, okay, weird, whatever. And it's saying like, oh, it's like part of me is trapped in jail with her. You know, whatever. So she's telling everybody that she's really a good person. That's like, if everybody knew her, like she wouldn't get convicted. You know, she's being railroaded or whatever. So it's just kind of like, so this kind of woman is out there in the media, like advocating on her behalf. So she's like in tabloids, she's on talk shows, all that kind of shit. So at this point, and plus she brings a lot of press into the prison, like to get Aileen to talk to them, like, but only if the press was going to be sympathetic to her and would write a story, you know, kind of getting the public to feel sorry for her. So that was kind of her whole shtick.
Gramthars is in the damn comments. He's a fucking 27-year veteran, fucking police force. He's talking about, yeah, man, fucking the hookers in Detroit were rolling fucking Johns all the time. And this is, let me tell you guys something. Fucking Gramthars will back me up on this shit. Do not fuck with street hookers. They take you to some place to fucking seal the deal, and sometimes her fucking boyfriend's in that location waiting for you, pulls a gun on you, and takes your fucking wallet, rolls you. What are you gonna do? Go to the cops? I was trying to seal the deal with this fucking seal the deal with this hooker, and her fucking boyfriend robbed me. You're not gonna do nothing.
Well, they know that.
Money.
That's why they do it.
Right.
Because they know you're not gonna report
it. If you're fucking hard up and you just fucking can't get a woman, or you just want, save your fucking money, save up till you got $1,000 and go down to the fucking strip club when a fucking...
Or just buy a fleshlight, for Christ's sake.
porn stars fucking do porn as an advertisement for fucking professional services. When they come into town at the fucking strip club, that's when you hit them up for $1,000. You can sleep with your favorite porn star. This is how it goes.
Well, yeah, that's one of their...
That's why she's there. Go back to her hotel for $1,000. Be some other guys waiting for you. You know, it's not going to be just you. But, you know what I mean? This is a business, you know, fucking, and her boyfriend's probably going to be there. Her security, what they're going to call it. Yeah. But,
yeah, so, like I said, this Arlene woman is giving Aileen all this, like, advice and shit. And then, apparently, there was this weird thing where I don't know if there was going to be some kind of change or something where Arlene and her husband were not going to be able to visit Aileen anymore because they weren't related. So at this point, somebody, like an attorney or something like that, said, hey, well, if you adopt Aileen Wuornos, then you'll be related to her because you'll be her parents. So you can visit her if you want to. So they did. They adopted her, even though she was like in her 40s. Which I didn't know you could do that. I thought you could only adopt a minor.
Ridiculous.
Well, no, I guess, because I guess, like, if somebody's, like, old and they're, like, mentally incompetent or whatever, or, like, you can adopt, I guess you can do that if they're, like, over the age of majority. I guess you can adopt anybody
you want to. That way they can be in your will.
I mean, that seems, like, ripe for exploitation, I'm just saying. But I guess they did let her do it, at least back then. They let Arlene and her husband, and I don't even know, like, Arlene and her husband might have been the same age as her, but they adopted her as their daughter, so they could come visit. I don't know, it was really weird. And I think Arlene said God told her to, because that's just what she did. So basically they're going to have a trial, but Aileen rather, they got a plea bargain. So she said, I'll plead guilty to 6 charges, because she actually, from her confession, she killed 7 dudes, but one of the dudes they never found, like the body they never found. So they couldn't really charge her with that. So they were going to charge her with 6 murders, and she was going to get 6 consecutive life terms. However, there was one state attorney that thought that she should get the death penalty. So what they decided to do, because he was so head up on her getting executed, was that, okay, well, we're going to put her on trial for just one murder, the murder of Richard Mallory, the first guy. And if she gets guilty for that, then we can execute her for that, and then it'll be, you know what I mean, because they said if we try to do like all 6, it's not gonna like work out the way they want. Now interestingly, at the trial they didn't introduce anything about, and I'm not saying, I'm not victim blaming or anything like that, but Richard Mallory did have several like prior convictions for rape and for, you know, child molestation, things of that nature. And that was actually not introduced at the trial. I don't know if it wasn't allowed, or if they didn't think of it, or they didn't know, or whatever. So that might have played a part in subsequent events, but it wasn't introduced at the trial. Now, but another thing that they allowed you to do in Florida at the time, because I know some states have differing laws on this. Sometimes if you're being tried for a murder, right, sometimes they're allowed to introduce evidence of other crimes you committed that you're not being charged for at the moment. Sometimes you can introduce that into evidence if it establishes a pattern of behavior, right? Yeah. So because they were only trying her technically for one murder, However, they were able to bring in evidence of the other murders in the trial, even though she wasn't being charged with those because they didn't feel like they had enough evidence in those. So the fact that between her being charged with the murder of Richard Mallory and them not introducing anything about his prior convictions, but also being able to bring in evidence about all the other murders that she may or may not have committed, even though she wasn't being charged with them at that time, pretty damaging. Another thing that was very damaging and was her defense attorney strongly suggested that she not testify on her own behalf. However, she decided she was going to do that shit anyway. And in fact, she was the only witness on her own behalf. She was the only defense witness. And she didn't make that good an impression, to put it mildly. She was real belligerent. She swore a lot. She just really didn't make a good impression on the jury. She was not likable, right? And which is why her defense attorney told her, please don't testify, but she did anyway. And that probably ended up hurting her as well. She basically kind of came on and was like, she was saying about how they had all raped her and stuff, and it just sounded, the way that she said it, like, just sounded not all that believable. And obviously the jury didn't believe her, and they played a lot of tapes of her confessions and stuff. And her confessions, she was basically talking about killing the dudes, and she didn't seem sorry about it. She didn't seem, she wasn't repentant. She wasn't anything like that. And so the jury were kind of like, well, she just seems like, that was just what she wanted to do, and that she was kind of a piece of shit. Now, she did say that she thought that she deserved the death penalty because she had killed people, and she thought she was a terrible person. She did have that much self-awareness.
They're asking what we're smoking. It's herbal cigarettes, and it's kind of like a menthol. It's real light, kind of like a tea flavor. It's nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I can't smoke cigarettes anymore. I'm easily addicted to nicotine.
Yeah.
I stopped fucking a long time ago, but I haven't smoked in a while. It's nice though. Like vaping. It's kind of like vaping.
Yeah, I just got these off Amazon because they didn't have any.
So it's giving that smoky flavor, and you got the ritual.
They don't have nicotine or anything in them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, when she was cross-examined, the cross-examiner, like, it's funny because the dude, he was the prosecutor, John Tanner. And I remember that dude from the 80s because I remember he was on this big anti-porn crusade back then. And he was, like, always all over the news back in the 80s, like, wanted to cracking down on porn. I just feel like that was, like, all he was. I had totally forgot that he prosecuted the Aileen Wuornos case because I'm just like, oh, it's the porn guy, because that's all he was ever fucking talking about. Because he was, like, some big fucking fundamentalist or something.
Back when they were worried about shit like that.
I know, funny.
A lot of bigger shit to worry about.
That's like all I remember.
That's because they didn't have internet, so if they saw something new, it would shock them.
Well, the thing about it is that I kind of feel like dudes like that, allegedly, the more they're worried about porn, the more they're worried about child porn, shit like that, the more they're into it, because I think projecting.
It wasn't, and a lot of times that the guys that were worried about it and going out and making money trying to prosecute it, they were doing it because they were getting money from people who were even older than them. So it was like a grift. It was a grift.
Victor says, what's the brand? They're called Nerdosh.
Yeah, they're good.
Herbal cigarettes. I just got them off Amazon. I just searched like herbal cigarettes.
Delivered them right to the house. They're not bad. Yeah. They're good.
And they're cheap too. I got a couple packs for just like $6 or something. So yeah. So at this point, like, the prosecutor, like, was not having it, and just, like, kind of pointed out all her inconsistencies and shit like that. She did take the fifth on a bunch of questions, but, as I said, she really kind of damaged her own case as well, like all the shit that she said. So, January 27th, the judge, gave the case to the jury. It took the jury less than 2 hours to find Aileen Wuornos guilty of first-degree murder. And as they were leaving the courtroom, Aileen screamed at them, "I'm innocent. I was raped. I hope you get raped." Scumbags of America. So, you know.
Look at this shit.
A charming woman.
Xanada said, Tom got me into the 80s goth. Pretty good. Kind of like proto-emo. Don't you ever fucking compare goth to emo at any fucking time. No. Goth was goth. It was its own thing. Fucking emo was a temporary little fucking stupid shit. It was not, it didn't have anything to do with emo. We were laughing at emo when that came out. Like, what the fuck is that?
Well, shit, man. I was like so old that like by the time that came out that I was just kind of like, what are these kids?
I'll show you some more later on. There's some other good.
The hair and the skinny jeans.
It was rock. It was just before it was called goth. It was also called death rock. You know, goth was a term that got applied to it later. We were doing it and didn't even know it was called goth. We was just, yeah, man, it's fucking like a death kind of rock. But there was also, you know, shit like Virgin Prunes. Well, that was around already. Alien Sex Fiend. Fucking.
Gramthars says, is the cure goth or emo?
Goth.
Well, because they've been around. Well, they've been around since like fucking 1978. So we didn't even know what emo was back then.
Yeah, they were goth.
Although they started out
they didn't know they were goth.
They started out as kind of like a punk or a post-punk band.
Yeah, it was like
their early shit is kind of like post-punk. Yeah. They went more gothy. Punk. Yeah, they went more gothy later on. I thought Pornography is one of the gothiest albums ever. And that came out in 82.
Yeah, that's another one. Fucking Xanada, if you liked fucking First and Last and Always from Sisters of Mercy, go get the Cure, an album called Pornography. That bitch is one of the darkest albums. It's very much like First and Last and Always, but just more intense. Almost with a hint of psychedelic, like a really dark psychedelic to it. That was a fucking really good album. And I think it predated that, didn't it? By about 2-3 years. It predated First and Last and Always. Really, really good.
Yeah, Pornography came out in 82.
82, yeah.
First and Last and Always was 85?
4 or 5, something like that.
I think it was 85.
Yeah. But so, I would think Pornography was one of the first albums that I would say that's fucking goth.
Now he's asking if 9 Inch Nails is goth. Or
no, industrial. Goth industrial.
I kind of feel like that's more goth industrial.
Goth industrial.
Like I said, I saw 9 Inch Nails in fucking 1990, opening for Peter Murphy when nobody knew who
he was. The first two bands that we noticed and we knew it was a thing was Bauhaus and Skinny Puppy. Skinny Puppy was from Ontario, but they lived in Detroit. All right, and that was part of the scene that fucking when I'd go to City Club, you'd see Skinny Puppy there. And they'd play at St. Andrew's Hall and stuff. Skinny Puppy was like one of the very first industrial bands. It's like a gothic industrial band. Look, Google Skinny Puppy, Bites, Remission. And that's an album. It's 2 albums combined together. And those 2 albums, they first came off separately. Bites and then Remission. And then they released them together, Bites and Remission. And it sounds like industrial music. It sounds like computers. It isn't. It's dudes that have lifted bits of music and vocal tracks from old horror movies like Evil Dead and turned those into fucking songs. It's all handmade. It's bizarre. Really good. And that was 9 Inch Nails was kind of a copy of that, but they were using computers, which was cheating.
That's kind of like when 9 Inch Nails first came out. That's kind of what that was the first thing I thought. It was like, it kind of sounds like Skinny Puppy.
But cheating, yeah, they're using computers.
Cheating.
They're using computers.
I didn't mind him though.
Skinny Puppy was made by hand.
I saw him several.
They were just using tape. Skinny Puppy and the very first. Okay, you got to understand that house, industrial, and rap were all happening in the same clubs at the same time in Detroit. Skinny Puppy kind of used a lot of the same tricks that Chuck D and Public Enemy. They were using a lot of the same tricks Public Enemy was using. Public Enemy and Skinny Puppy were kind of like two different. Was the white version and the black version, but they were very similar. One was hip hop and the other one gangster rap, and the other one was kind of like a dark horror sound. Really cool. That's it.
Yeah, Xanada said he liked Skinny Puppy and also Wumpscut, which I like Wumpscut.
Yeah, Wumpscut,
yeah, I also like Wumpscut.
Absolutely.
And KMFDM. I also like KMFDM.
That was later. That was more gothic, techno, industrial kind of. Yeah.
No Need for Me Too says Disintegration was 89, I think. Yeah. I think that came out like my last year of high school. So yeah, that would have been 89 or 90.
Yeah. Disintegration, Goths liked it. But that's not really I guess you could say it was a Goth.
I bought that album and I liked it, but at that point, I had kind of gone off the Cure a little bit because they were getting too. I liked that album,
poppy,
but they were getting like too mainstream at that point.
It was getting kind of poppy by our standards. You know, fucking what was another really good one? Christian Death with fucking Roz Williams. That was another good one. That was
not the Valor version.
Not Valor so much.
Although I do like that one song that Valor did, but other than that, I don't.
Then later on, you had stuff like The Tear Garden or the legendary Pink Dots. I like them. They were good. Big into fucking Death in June, Nature and Organization, and Current 93. Which was kind of like the post-industrial gothic folk music, which was bizarre. You know, a new version, a more modern version of that would be like Death in Rome. That's a good one. What else you got to say? Anybody else talking?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to finish the
case.
No. I'm just like waiting for you to stop talking. No.
Okay.
No, so the jury unanimously finds her guilty. She gets all tells them she hopes they get raped. So that's charming. Now they did actually have, I guess at the trial they did have some psychiatrists that testified on her behalf that were kind of trying to maybe mitigate it somewhat. That said that she suffered from borderline personality disorder, which I don't doubt that. She did have a lot of the symptoms of that. But the jury didn't give a shit and gave her a whole bunch of death sentences. Now, she only stood trial the one time. And like I said, that was just for the one murder, the first one. Now, March 31st of that same year, she actually pleaded no contest to 3 other murders, saying she wanted to, quote, get right with God. Now, at this point, because like I said, when she was at the trial, she tried to say, oh, they all raped me. It was all self-defense. But after she essentially pleaded no contest to the rest of the murders, she said, okay, well, the first guy did try to rape me or did actually rape her, and then she killed him in self-defense. The other ones started to, but they didn't get that far. So she was kind of saying, okay, well, the other ones weren't self-defense, right? Now, apparently, so at this hearing or whatever, where she said that, where she essentially came out and said, yeah, they weren't all self-defense, just the first one was. Then she turns to the assistant state attorney and says, I hope your wife and children get raped in the ass. So that's nice. At that point, she already had a couple of death sentences. She got 3 more, at which point she just flicked the judge off and called him a motherfucker. So that's nice. Month after that, she pled guilty to another murder, Charles Carlscaden, and got a 5th death sentence for that. And then she also, in February of 1993, pleaded guilty to another murder, Walter Antonio. As I said, so that was 6 death sentences. She killed 7 men probably, but they never did charge her for the death of Peter Seams because they never did find his body. They just, she just had the car. Thank you, Gadgy 3. Turns out all I needed was some inspiration like Mr. Miyagi, but a lot less Asian. All right.
Thank you for the super chats, people. This is the end of the month. We know y'all are broke.
Yeah, it's all right.
Thank you.
We're all broke.
Yeah.
So, as I said, the first victim, later they found out that he was had actually served 10 years for rape and various other things, which they didn't introduce at the trial. Don't know if that would have made a difference. Might have. I don't know. But they didn't do a new trial. And at one point, because when you're on a death penalty case, you get like all the appeals, right? At one point, Aileen said she refused further appeals. She was kind of just like, fuck this shit, just kill me. I don't give a crap anymore. I kind of feel like she had gotten to the point where she was just sick of being alive. She was just sick of fighting. So she actually got executed by lethal injection. Actually, at this point, I think in Florida, you could choose, which is fucked up. You could choose between lethal injection or electric chair. So she chose lethal injection. So she got killed in October of 2002. That was more than a decade after she murdered 6 men. Well, 7, but they never did find the other body. So she got executed. She was 46 years old. The 10th woman in the U.S. and the 2nd woman in Florida to be executed since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. So 51 men in that same time period, 51 men had been executed between 1976 and 2002. The other woman who was executed in Florida, if you're curious, was Judy Buenoano. She was also considered a serial killer, although unlike Aileen Wuornos, she killed people that she knew, intimates. She killed some of her boyfriends, a husband, a son, other people like that. She killed people she knew. She didn't kill strangers. Now, famously, Aileen Wuornos' last words were, this is so weird. She said, "I just like to say, I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all. Okay. I'll be back."
She's tripping.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Which, all right. You know. So, yeah. So we mentioned earlier that if you have not seen the movie Monster, which I think came out in 2003, right? 2003?
Yeah.
With Charlize Theron
yeah.
and Christina Ricci. Go see that shit, because that movie is amazing.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing. Like, these boobs are amazing.
Pretty. See? Yeah. You can't.
I can't resist them. Can't resist them. It's 8:30 though.
Is it?
Yeah, it's 8:30.
Oh, shit.
We gotta start getting ready.
Oh, man, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, shut this shit down, Jenny. Shut it the fuck down.
I feel bad because I think Louis just got here.
Louis just got here? Oh, he missed it. Well, no, as soon as you shut it down, he'll be able to go back and watch it.
You can go back and watch it, yeah. Because, like, yeah, seriously, we're going to, the reason I'm dressed like this is because we're going to a Halloween party.
Yeah.
Which is starting in about half an hour.
Brittany said that was a boob spiral. Yes, it was.
I still.
Boob spiral.
Well, I would have been done a long time ago if you would like stop going off on a bunch of. I was supposed to get an Amazon delivery today, so maybe it's that. But yeah, so we have to get the fuck out of here because we got to go down and do some Halloween shit. Halfway to Halloween shit. I'm glad I finally got through the fucking case. Not, you know. Yeah, Tom kept going off on fucking shit, but whatever. But yeah. So thanks everybody for dropping by as always. I don't know if I should wait for Tom to come back so he can say bye. Thank you, Victor. Good show. What is it? Is it stuff?
Okay.
Is it stuff that's mine?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It feels heavy, like a book or something.
Oh. Should I open it on camera? I don't even know what it is.
Shut it down. We gotta go.
Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go. I gotta put shoes on. I gotta put corset on. I gotta put nails on. I gotta do all kind of shit.
Right.
All right. So thank everybody for dropping by. Thank you all for your donations this evening. And we will see you guys on Sunday, where we'll be talking about probably the new Creep Show and maybe Brimstone Treacle as well.
Yeah.
So have a good weekend, everybody. And we will see you on Sunday afternoon. Bye.